Good evening, everyone.
Yes.
Welcome to the Conservation Commission meeting for Monday, November 29th. We're meeting in person, obviously, and also via Zoom, according to Governor Baker's recommendations.
I stapled them all, but I must not have.
And with that, I'll ask, do we have any
Of course.
public comments?
That's it.
Nothing special? David, do you have some minutes you want to?
Jane,
The answer is no.
can I go over the minutes?
If you
Or
want
do
to,
you
I
want-
haven't gone through them all completely.
Okay.
You have a folder, right?
We have the minutes of October 4th, 2021. And I reviewed all the information that was submitted. And there's only one section that I thought we left out a word. Under 31 Water Street, on the first page, the second paragraph, the site's resource areas include land underwater, bordering vertical land subject to flooding, and bordering vegetative wetlands. But I also recall that the word bank was cited as one of the resource areas. It's only a small amount of area, but it was pointed out that the bank was included.
Okay.
And when we did the site walk, it was also mentioned that there was a small bank area.
Okay. All right, so we could add bank in there.
Unless anybody has any other additions to it?
Nope.
Anybody? Jeff? Peter? Nothing?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Somebody want to second that as
Second.
revised?
A second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Then we have the minutes of October 18th, 2021. Everything I feel has been adequately discussed. The only question that I would like to just bring up is on page 2 on the 16 Garrett Splain Road, by law NOI F 2021-1, continued hearing. The sixth paragraph that's down near the end, there's a section in here that commissioners would like to see the restoration area planted by a professional under conservation agent's supervision. First step would be restore the 100-foot VPNAZ before any of the work proposed under the notice of intent is begun. No vote until the plan is finalized. The commission agreed with the removal of wood chips and hand removal of invasive vines, etc. If I recall, the discussion was that there was a discussion about the removal of wood chips would not be required because they're already deteriorating, and that they were also seeing plant life for blue pine needle trees starting to grow up, and that it would have a adverse effect of removing them.
I think that was discussed on November 1st.
On November 1st?
Yeah, this has been a moving target, so at
Okay.
that point, that probably was what was discussed.
Okay. And I don't find anything else with the minutes of October 18th. Unless anybody else has any.
Somebody want a second?
A second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Been 7:05 PM. We have a request for determination pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and Foxborough's Wetland Protection Bylaw, Chapter 267, the Conservation Commission will open a public meeting on Monday, November 29, 2021, at 7:05 PM in the Gala Meeting Room, Foxborough Town Hall, 40 South Street, or via Zoom on a request for determination of applicability filed by Jason Lepolis for the construction of an addition to an existing single-family home at 3 Ashcroft Lane, Assessors Map 017, Parcel 007, within 100 feet of a wetland resource area. The application is available for public inspection at the Conservation Office.
Good evening. I'm Rich Leslie with Bay Colony Group, and I'm representing Jason and Jennifer Lapolis. The property, it's located about 300 feet west of North Street, which would be over this area. It's at the end of Ashcroft Lane. It's the last house on the right-hand side. It's surrounded on three sides by wetlands. It goes to this, on the west, then to the rear, and then back down on this side. What they're proposing is a 803 square foot addition. It's gonna come right off, most of it comes right off the back of the house right here, a little bit comes right off the side. And the entire addition is within the 100-foot buffer. As you can see, even the existing garage right here is only 23 feet more or less from the edge of the wetlands. But although the addition is within the 100-foot buffer, probably, I think it's 560 square feet, or 70% of it is right here. See this bituminous area? It's all on pavement. And so there's just this little part right over here that's off the pavement where there's currently lawn. The lawn extends right to that wall, which is, once you hit the wall, it's buried in poison ivy. You really can't go any farther past there. And the lot generally just slopes from east to west. So we weren't worried about any erosion control, along this side here. And that's pretty much it. I came in, I went over this with Jane earlier, and I think you're familiar with this site. We were here 2 years ago. We upgraded the septic system. There was a cesspool for the rear dwelling, there was a cesspool for the front dwelling right here. That was back in September of 2019. And now that they got that all done, now they're looking to do this addition.
So, not our problem, but the Board of Health okay with the number of bedrooms? et cetera?
Bedrooms have not changed.
Oh, okay,
It was just, the front house is 4 bedrooms, it's remaining 4 bedrooms.
okay, all right. I did not get out. Jane, I know you reviewed it. Do you have any comments?
No, because it's in an area that's previously disturbed, and most of it, as Rich just said, is on pavement
Pavement already?
or previously altered areas. I didn't see that would be a problem.
Okay. Any comments from the board?
No, it's right in between the two buildings, and again, it's on already impervious land.
Becca?
No comments.
David?
The impervious area, is it going to stay the same as we're seeing on the plan? Are we adding any more sidewalks or anything else on the side?
I don't believe so. No, they're gonna, I don't even know if that will stay there, but let's assume it does. They're not gonna add it. The driveway, the existing driveway it's all right on this way right here. It's a brand-new driveway, as a matter of fact. So I don't see, and they added this walkway a while ago, so I don't see any additional impervious happening, Dave. Actually, the way they get into that garage is right here.
Is that going to change with that addition then?
No, we talked about it. He uses it more as a workshop and an exercise room for his son. So I don't see any changes happening with the existing garage.
Where would you be setting the rooftop runoff? It wouldn't head towards the 25, no.
No, it would probably continue, like I say, it slopes this way, it'll probably continue with the sheet flow that's already doing. This is all grass, this whole area over here.
Okay.
And there's a huge retaining wall that he built when he did it's probably right in around here, the retaining wall for the leaching field.
Okay. I'd say just, if you have any downspouts, just send them in that direction.
Excuse me?
If you have downspouts coming off this, just send the water in that direction.
I will.
Yeah.
Is there gonna be a foundation? Do you guys have to dig footings for it, or is it it's just gonna be like a wooden floor? Like what?
No, there's gonna be, I'm not sure if I haven't checked if there's gonna be a full foundation or not. This part of the house, it's an old house. The foundation probably to the top is only about maybe 6 feet. I'm not sure if they're just gonna go with a full foundation underneath the addition or not.
So I guess I'm wondering, like, when you guys are doing the digging, you're so close to the buffer zone already, to the edge, like, how are you guys planning to accommodate that?
With the
Like
material.
fill and dirt, yeah, I mean, you're making piles.
Well, I'm sure they'll probably stockpile whatever they have to right over here or off to the side. There's no room to go towards
Right.
that direction at
Right.
all.
Yeah,
And there's, the whole site, there's not a lot of room to work. And so I would imagine if there is a stockpile, it would be right here. And I'm not even sure about if they'll go with that full foundation. We found a high water table when we.
just don't want, like, you're doing a slab, or you're putting in footings, I guess is what I'm driving at, you know?
Exactly. So at least they have to go 3 feet for a frost wall, right? So it's gonna at least be 3 feet
Okay.
down. So I'm not sure it's gonna be a crawl space underneath there or a full foundation.
Okay.
Jeff? anything?
No, the only question I had was the runoff that we talked about.
Any comments from the audience? Not, somebody want to make it?
I'll make a motion for a negative determination on 3 Ashcroft Lane, M017P007.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you.
Thank you.
7:10, we have an NRAD for 2 Washington Street. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and Foxborough's Wetland Protection Bylaws, Chapter 267, the Conservation Commission will open a public hearing on Monday, November 29, 2021, at 7:10 PM in the Gala Meeting Room, Foxborough Town Hall, 40 South Street, and via Zoom on an abbreviated Notice of Resource Area Delineation, better known as an NRAD, filed by Ron Hoyle, Rock Point Fund Acquisitions, LLC, for the property located at 2 Washington Street, Assessors Map 001, Parcel 004, to verify the boundaries of all resource areas related to the property. The application is available for public inspection, Conservation Office, Town Hall.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Bill Buckley. I work for the Bay Colony Group, and I'm here representing the applicant, Rock Point Fund Acquisitions, LLC. So I put the plan up on the screen here, which you have individual copies yourself. So this is 2 Washington Street, which is, more commonly known as Dimitri's, Funway, Olive and Mint. It's a 30.5 acre parcel of land. This used to be all one parcel of land. Actually, the board is very familiar, the commission's very familiar with it. Stretched all the way to Panis Road and encompassed all of that. And then subsequent to that, probably 4 or 5 years ago, this piece was cut out and the parcel was purchased by another entity, not Dimitri's. And actually in 2012, we filed an ANRAD with the commission to delineate this wetland line, which wasn't just this, it was the entire parcel, so it extended all the way over to Panis Road. But what we're here for tonight is just this piece of the property. And so this is, you can see, this is the building, the function hall. Over here to the right is the Funway facility. This is the large parking lot in the rear. And the wetland is in the farther in the rear of the property. So I'm going to just zoom in on that and focus on that. So this is the wetland on it. There's an intermittent stream that runs through here. You can kind of see the shadow of it that runs from the farm to the south and actually starts there at a farm pond, heads north, goes under Panis Road. This heavy line, of course, is the property line. So we did go a little bit over it in order to delineate everything within 100 feet of the site. The delineation is very similar to what was delineated in 2012. It's actually expanded a bit, as one would expect. This used to be, in this area here, what used to be an isolated wetland. It's now been connected to to the main wetland down in this area here. This is expanded a little bit up in this area here. You can see this was a pathway that used to go through, and the wetland used to kind of wrap in a little bit more. That is now caught up. The wetland is pushed out to the edge of the cleared area. And then up in this area here, I think there's also an expansion. So the wetland line is very similar, but it has expanded slightly. The wetland delineation was done by Pear Corporation. The report was in the filing that we gave you. It's in Appendix A. And I've talked to Jane about this, and I've told her she could go out there if she wants to. I think Lauren Gluck has already called her and told her that, she can, will make herself available to walk with Jane, and I've also told Jane that she can walk it herself as her time opens up. So I don't really have anything else to add. Are there any questions?
Jane, have you scheduled the walk yet?
I have not. It's been a busy time. I have full confidence in Lauren. She crawls around, and the other side was all prickle bushes and horror shows, so I'm really looking forward to going out with her. And I plan to do it sometime early this week, either with or without her.
Okay.
I suspect it'll be pretty darn accurate.
I will not disagree with that. How's the best way to get into there, Bill?
I would just park in the back corner of the parking lot, go into the right of the building,
Okay,
and then just go in the back corner and then just walk back there.
all right.
There's a, actually, don't go in the back, because there's a gate. I think there's a fence up top there. I'm not sure there's a gate locked or not.
Okay,
I'll call the owner to make sure that it's unlocked.
Is that old cart path still there?
I don't know, probably. I haven't been out there. So,
I know, I've walked part of this before with some of the other things going on, and I remember parts of it being very difficult to get through.
yeah,
It was not an easy walk, so.
Yeah, wear your
Two pair.
poker-proof chaps or 2 pairs of jeans like you often do. Also, Bob, there's probably a lot of poison ivy back there, too.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
Well, you can go with me or whatever.
Yes, yeah. I'll try to arrange that. Anybody have any questions? Anybody want to go on a lovely site walk?
Hey, let me know when you schedule it.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Free.
Okay.
When is the weather going to turn decent?
Me? That's your definition, decent.
Well, it could be good if we have to wear several layers of clothes.
Hmm.
Just wear old ones.
Depends what your definition is.
Bill, did you get a DEP number yet? I didn't get one.
no, I checked today, they haven't assigned a number yet. So if you're gonna have a group, if you can just let me know, Jane, so I can make sure I tell the owners, and I don't know why, but
Yeah,
they want to.
okay.
Was this site previously disturbed as a part of the farm?
This was definitely part of the farm. It was an old pig farm decades ago. And probably 30 years ago, this portion up here, you can kind of see the wood line. That was all cut back by the owner. I don't know why. So it is definitely part of the old farm.
Any other questions or comments at this time?
Nope.
So after the site walk, well, when would you like to continue this to, Bill?
If you could just continue it to the next meeting, and if we're all set, great, and otherwise we can continue it again. But whatever the next meeting is, I think it's the 13th.
Just one question, Bill. On your plan, you have at the back of the lot, are those paved runoff areas going into the woods? See the back end? You see those a long rectangular?
No, that's a walk. There's probably a 6-foot cut there. So the parking lot was cut down, so that's going up. I think that's just an access point. They store like, they used to, I don't know if they still do or not, but they used to put like, not shipping containers, but connexes up top there. They put stuff in there. I don't know if they still do or not. That was just an access, a way for them to get into the back there.
Make a motion? Continue it to the next hearing?
December 13th.
Which is
It's the 13th.
the 13th.
To December 13th?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right. What?
We need something from the applicant saying that they agreed to the continuance.
He just did. He did it perfectly. But not too bad.
Wait, you have the-
Yeah, I guess so. Pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and Foxborough's Wetland Protection Bylaw, Chapter 267, the Conservation Commission will open a public hearing on Monday, November 29, 2021, at 7:15 p.m. in the Gala Meeting Room, Foxborough Town Hall, 40 South Street, and via Zoom on a notice of intent filed by Michael Huck, Foxborough Country Club, for the proposed restoration of a pond at a golf course at 33 Walnut Street, Assessors Map 145, parcels 027. Portion of the proposed work lie within 100 feet of a resource area. The application is available for public inspection at the Conservation Office at Town Hall. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Sarah Stearns with Beals and Thomas. I'm a PWS. I also have with me tonight representing the Foxborough Country Club, Mike Pock, who's the superintendent, Tom Buckley, and Jim Devlin behind me. Thank you for your time this evening. I brought our plan set, paper plan set, which I think you also have in front of you. I'm happy to go up to the easel and point out things as we talk about them. But if it pleases the commission, I'd be happy to just give an overview of the proposed work. There are 4 components of this project that I'd like to describe for you, and then I'd certainly be happy to take questions for myself or for Mike or Jim or Tom. We'll do our best to answer them tonight, and hopefully schedule a site walk and discuss the project further. Great. Pardon my reading, but I just wanted to make sure I go down my bullet points to make sure I cover everything. Let's take my coat off. So this NOI was submitted in compliance with the Act and the Foxborough Wetlands Protection Bylaw and regulations for work proposed within land under water bodies and waterways. I'll just shorten that to land underwater as we discuss it, so it's not such a mouthful. Bank, as well as the local 25-foot no activity zone. So this is, the Foxborough Country Club is located at 33 Walnut Road, also map 145, lot 27. And the entirety of the property is approximately 200 acres. So it's a large site that we're talking about. However, we are working on an area with a limit of work of just under 1 acre. So all of these components are in a very small area of the property. Our locus map is on there, and I'll go up and kind of point to it in a second, but just to stay on the microphone as I run through the elements. So this is an area, it's a very small ponded area that's connected via an intermittent stream, and just is an area that flow is sort of settles in, but it's conveyed through and off the property through this area. And one of the things that the club would like to do as part of this project is excavate accumulated sediment from the pond bottom on the land underwater. As part of that project, the kind of associated phase would be to armor the bank on one section of the pond, similarly to another portion of the pond with stones on site in a natural pattern. We're not talking about a retaining wall or anything unnatural looking, but similarly to pictures that were included in the NOI, just a natural way to hold that bank back where it is currently sloughing into the pond. And then kind of the third piece of this, in working with a golf course architect familiar with the club property, we've incorporated some grading between this pond and the green area just to help convey the flow and runoff a little bit more efficiently. So again, to not contribute to this sloughing off and breakdown of the bank into the ponded area. Also, very close to this area of the pond, there is a cart path that crosses above the stream that connects this pond to a second small inundated area that the culvert has been damaged. It's very old. There's significant scour. The path above it is starting to crumble. It has become a safety issue, but also the efficiency of the water flow through this area can be greatly improved. And so that's kind of the second piece of this and fourth piece of this list of proposed work where this aged culvert would be replaced with a span bridge. And so that would certainly help the safety issue with with the cart path as well as the maintenance traffic traveling above, but also really help the conveyance of water through this area and improve what's there. And that crossing, by the way, has been designed to meet the Massachusetts stream crossing standards, so that all of those components have been factored in. And again, it's a very small area, but we just wanted to make sure that it was done correctly and something that wouldn't need to be done again in the future, we hope. So hopefully everyone's gotten a chance just to at least flip through the NOI. We've tried to provide the commission with a comprehensive analysis and show how the project meets the performance standards, both under the Act and your local wetlands bylaw. And a couple, if I can bring my little cheat sheet up to the board and just kind of run through a few specifics, if that's helpful.
Could you slide that little,
Sorry for the people behind.
Rich, can
Yeah,
you see?
that's good. I can
that
see it now,
okay?
yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay.
Our cameraman is very good.
Yes. So we worked with Bay Colony, who, as you know, is very familiar with this area and does a lot of work in the town. So Bay Colony Group did this survey. So Bill and Thomas did the wetland delineation, and we worked with Bay Colony to collect the survey data. So that's why you'll see kind of this compilation of both of our names in this plan set. So this is the area of the course. Here's Route 95. The course is right off of 95. This little area right here, closest to the highway, is the area that we're talking about. And, you know, it's a little pond area. If you look on Google Earth, you'll be able to see it. It's very small, but, you know, I think it's a small project, but it could be very helpful to really helping the conveyance of water in this area be a little bit more efficient, cleaner. You know, there's really no change after this project other than having a pond that's 6 to 18 inches deeper and pulling out some of that sediment that has just accumulated over time within that.
And how many golf balls are you going to be pulling out?
I'm guessing there's a lot of golf balls in there. Would you say? Yes. Yeah. So it's right in front of the green, so even more so. When people, you know, just get a shot spot short that's going right in there. In the notice of intent, we included some photographs of the pond when it's full and the pond when it's dry. And when it's dry, you can really see the undulations in the pond bottom where that sediment has really kind of built up over time. So I haven't really referred to it as a dredge project because this can be done when the when the pond is dry. So it's more of an excavation. It's a clean out. There are plenty of places that Mike has earmarked with the membership around the property, 200 acres, to use the spoils that they take out of the pond to regrade into the landscape, so everything will be kept on site. We have included a temporary gravel construction road that just connects to the existing paved cart path, just to get truck traffic in and out without anything sinking into the area. That would be removed post-construction. Because of the nature of this business, the private golf club, I think the faster that this can be done and everything put back together, the better for everybody. So, erosion control in place, we'll discuss that and talk with the agent about that. And then everything gets buttoned up as soon as humanly possible. The pressure will be on Mike to get it done before and get it cleaned back and playable. So just really quickly running through those 4 components. The sediment removal, we calculated approximately 21 cubic yards of material. So in order to qualify for a dredge permit, you need to cross the threshold of 100 cubic yards, so we're nowhere near that. So that just gives you a sense of scale about how the size of this project. And again, just the spoils would be repurposed throughout the property. The bank fortification, and I believe we included a picture in the notice of the south side of the bank. Here where there's already on this side of the bank, there's already some stones that have been to the opening of the bank and have really helped kind of keep that bank in place. And the club would like to do the same thing on the eastern side of the bank. And we can talk about that, but really just incorporating it with the landscape so it has a natural effect, but also provide some structure so that that banking is not slopping off into the pond itself. You can see the proposed grading around the pond as well. And this is where we the club's golf course had just to soften the shade a little bit so it's less severe and again helps convey the water in a more efficient and logical way. If we're going to spend the time trying to improve the pond in this specific area, it just made sense to zoom out a little bit and look at the area as a whole, but also include a professional that had some insight as to making sure this hole remained playable for the golfers that use this club. And then lastly, the stream you can see that flows in this direction into this pond and then off-site this way toward 95. Up here is where we have the existing paved in some part and then gravel in this specific area where it has really broken down the culvert. So it's just adjacent to the pond, but really to remove the undersized culvert and improve both the flow conditions and the pedestrian and golf cart safety. This would be a really important piece of this project as well. So the culvert is a reinforced concrete pipe or RCP. It's about 15 inches, but the elevation is slightly off, so it's just scoured beneath and around it, which you can improve that by putting a span and just crossing the bank and even dealing with the bank and replacing there with some smooth stones and really just improve that area for both wildlife habitat as well as water conveyance. And then again, as I mentioned, the plan has been designed to meet the stream included
Does the stream flow all year round?
No.
So it'll still dry up on you?
Correct.
And how, you're going down 1.5 feet?
In the pond?
Yeah.
It's going to range because it's sort of like piles of sediment. So in some areas it's 6 inches, in some areas it may be more like 18 inches. So variable.
When do you plan to do it? When are you trying to do it?
Late April, late October into November, when there's not much golf, or even December.
Is it empty now or is it full?
Full now, rainy year.
Yeah.
First year in 16 years I haven't seen it dry out.
Yeah. Biggest.
So one thing I didn't hear you explain is where is the sedimentation coming from? And is it something that's going to keep causing the club to have problems in the future after all this work?
It's a very good question. Has this ever been cleaned out?
No.
So unlikely that they would have to do this again within the next few decades. This is the accumulation of stormwater runoff, major rain events, just, dropping material in over time, tens of years. And
Leaves, lots of leaves.
yeah, organics, just piling up, decaying, continuing to pile up. So unlikely that they would have to do this again in any of our lifetimes. But it is very common with these types of areas that it will have to be cleaned out very occasionally.
I noticed that your elevation is going to be, what it is now, is going to be about the same after you.
Yeah.
That's something that I just don't quite get. It doesn't look like you're removing much sedimentation for all this effort.
Yeah, it's a very, very shallow depression.
Right.
So it's really just to gain some depth and help that water flow through there. We don't want to create a very deep pond in this particular location, but just to help, I think it's important to, have some depth there so that we're not getting a lot of emergent vegetation that's coming up within that water column. So I think, 1.5 feet in some areas does make a big difference in a pond of this size.
I would almost think you might want to go down 1 foot further because of all the different seeds and the emergent vegetation that's already in there. You might be better off going a little bit deeper and you don't hit that threshold of
Right.
100 cubic feet.
Right.
And that'll give the pond a little bit more life.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you still have sedimentation coming down on the rainy side with the stream, it's ripping it out someplace. It's just something to think about. Because you don't have, if you're within or under 100 cubic feet, you're not in the dredging classification, right?
Correct, yeah, cubic yards, yeah.
And you didn't mention quite where the sloughing off is going on.
Yeah.
On the bank.
Yeah.
I wish I had a better photograph.
That's where they wanted to put the stones, so it's coming off of the,
I know it's in here.
The stones are here now,
but they want to put stones here to
in there.
reduce.
This is the existing, right? Yeah, so I don't know if do you have your NOI packets with you? On page 2-10 in the narrative, just to give you a sense, I'd be happy to come up and,
Okay.
does that help you? Yeah. So, sorry, they're small, but I can email these too. So this is the southern side of the pond where there are some existing stones, just sort of
Okay, that's in
haphazardly.
this area.
Yes,
These,
correct.
and you want to put the new stones
Here,
over
On
on
the
this side. Okay.
Easterly side.
on the east side, yeah.
Okay.
Is that what's in the second picture?
Yes.
This is the area?
Yes, exactly, because you can see how shallow the slope is there.
Mhm.
So it really just, maybe very similar to this, where it would be naturally laid
Okay.
out. You guys see this?
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
Anything else, David?
No, I'd recommend going a little bit deeper,
Yeah.
just to make this pond more efficient.
Jim?
No, no questions.
Peter?
Very familiar.
No questions.
Jeff?
Yeah, just the question, the current culvert, I'm assuming that's backing up in rain events? And the new bridge will resolve that issue?
Correct, yes. So the water comes from basically Walnut Street, kind of through the back wetland and through the back, kind of that area. And then in the spring, on wet springs, it backs up on 17, and then it backs up on 16.
Yep.
It comes up over the banks, so.
Okay. So
By raising the bank, in deepening it, it won't come over the bank anymore.
Right.
So it'll just flow.
I mean, looking at the picture that you just showed, I mean, you kind of see, so right now, it's kind of more of a nebulous wet spot almost, and you're trying to turn it into more of a pond, a contained pond is what your goal is.
But it just to flow. So we've already worked with the state. The state's already
Yep.
cleaned it on the highway side.
Yeah.
So they've already fixed that drain on the outside along 95,
Yep.
which was so overgrown that they came in and fixed it.
Mhm.
So that actually helped a lot of the flow. And then now it's just kind of going backwards now.
Yep.
So state helped out already, but
Yeah.
when they do mow it, they
Right.
mow it all the time. but-
Okay.
Jane?
It looks like this could be a good thing for the environment, especially if you use nature-based solutions or green infrastructure. You're going to have to slow down, I'm assuming, the flow with vegetated swales, not catch basins, check dams and that sort of thing, I assume?
I don't think we really need to slow it down. It's already,
It's just filling up from the wetland and
It's-
overflowing, so it's sort of more like bordering land subject to flooding type of thing?
well, it's just not flowing effectively. You know what I mean? The culvert is a pinch point, and it's not conveying the flow as efficiently as it can. And as Mike was alluding to, it's just a series of slower, even slower. So it's, to open this area up by not really doing all that much, just kind of a few key elements, cleaning out and widening by removing some of these pinch points. It will just help this flow come across more efficiently. But I don't think that it's going to need to be slowed down. This pond already provides an area for the water to sit it actually is a retention pond, really, until the water finds its way off-site.
All right, so the water flows towards the off-site section adjacent to the Route 95?
Yep, exactly.
Goes out of our property along 95, under 95, and then exit 7B, or what is it now, 13B? Goes under that, and you can actually see it kind of flowing out and then across and all the way across.
I'm trying to picture it, but I guess I'll picture it when I see it.
Yeah, we can take a look at it.
I was trying to follow it on Google Maps, and I can't. It's like,
It's hard to see.
I can pick it up
It sort of
further
dies
down,
out.
like when it's up to the Mansfield,
Yeah.
but I can't see it like right under they took the picture during the green season, there's too many leaves on the trees to see what's going on. so.
Yeah, that's why I think I gave you a picture that was during the no leaves.
So currently, what's the width of the two culverts total? Because I can see on your new bridge, it's going to be 8.5. Is that the same as the current culverts, or?
You're basically daylighting it, right? And according to the stream crossing standards?
Correct. And pulling out,
Good thing.
yeah, it is. Pulling out the 15-inch broken RCP and replacing it with just an open bottom and span bridge that doesn't even impact the existing banks is something that we try to do anywhere we possibly can with these streams. So, it really, we're viewing this as an improvement project, not just to help flow, alleviate backup and help flow through this property, but ecologically. I mean, it's a smart thing to do. I mean, it was kind of triggered with a safety issue and, chunks of this culvert kind of coming off, but, it's a beneficial thing.
Basically, you're going from a 36-inch width of rounded culverts to 8.5, which expands a lot of area.
Yes.
And improves the flow.
Yes, for the stream bottom itself, yeah.
Again, what Jane mentioned, something about slowing down that flow a little bit further because you're gonna be ripping out the bottom of the stream below it. Again, we're looking at the sedimentation.
I think we have to see it, David, because it's not what I had pictured at all. It
Yeah.
sounds more like it's not so much of a erosion coming from upstream as erosion coming from downstream flooding, correct?
And just I think a lot of it is this pond bank that has become very shallow and unstable, directly next to the pond itself. And again, this was over many, many years that this has accumulated. So, I think that it makes sense to look at the stream channel as it is today and what we can do for material to also improve that, or at least not make it any worse. And we can talk about that if we take a walk out there. But again, just to give you a sense of the scale of it, we're talking about a stream channel that's like the size of this table. I mean, it's a very, very, very small area. So I think pulling this culvert out is not, all of a sudden, we're not going to have like a luge run through there. It's a very, very shallow grade already, and that's not changing. It's really just, trying to help alleviate some of this, the slowdown in this area and just allow the water to pass more freely. But I don't think that it's going to change the rate of significantly of how this is passing through this area, but just allow it to meander a bit more freely.
So, Jane, do you think you agree that this is not a vernal pool versus the?
It smells like one. I have to see it. That's just a dirty word in this department. But no, I figured I'd wait to see it. If I were to look at it on an aerial, which I did, I'd think, well, that could be one if it were not altered in the past, and you haven't mentioned anything about wildlife. And I would be concerned about all the little turtles and frogs that are in the mud right now. So doing it next October sounds much better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the
But
plan.
that remains to be seen. It's not on the PVP potential vernal pool list,
Right.
but it does smell like one, so we'll see.
You don't know if this was made when the golf course was made, did you?
It was there, I think.
I-
Was
I
there?
think there's an old photo that was, from when they were building the golf course that was there.
They probably just did what they used to do, and they would just, oh, look, there's water there. It was certainly probably a vernal pool, and that's why we protect them now, because a lot of them have been disturbed in the past because we didn't know any better.
And when was the course built?
55.
When?
57.
Oh, okay, so no, they did all sorts of horrible things back then.
Well, the good news is that it's still there and functioning as a pond rather than having, it wasn't filled in, where, we've seen that happen in some of these older
It's never been
areas, too.
dredged since 57, so.
Because was it dredged in 57?
Yeah.
Well, like
You'd
I
have to-
said, it remains to be
Yeah,
seen.
you'd
I'm
have
going
to
to check it out, and I really don't want to say the dirty word, but, if it is functioning as wildlife habitat, then that should probably be addressed somehow as well.
Oh, I mean, there's certainly.
But enhancement and net environmental impact is what I look for.
Right.
And I think the commission does too.
100% agreed. And, this whole area serves some wildlife habitat, absolutely. I mean, it's wide open space, it's hundreds of acres of woods, green space, wetlands, waterways. I mean, it certainly is a contributor. We don't feel that this project is going to impact that if it's done correctly at the right time of year. You know, all of that makes sense to do it in a responsible manner. And you're right, it's not mapped for any kind of rare species or as habitat. But, you know, we're here to do this the right way, and we want to work together and to do this the right way.
So rather than look at paper and pictures, we really need to go out and see it, because it's really hard to tell on
Absolutely.
paper.
Yes, I agree 100%. We'd be happy to schedule a site visit for anyone who would like to
You
come
don't have to
out.
crawl through bushes for this one.
No, this is an easy one.
I think I lost a couple of balls there in 1992. Yeah, maybe they're still there. I don't know.
Oh, one thing I did not mention is that we did, this area is surrounded by BBW. So we did delineate, which is essentially the wood line. So, you know, if you want to look at the flags that we put out there, we can certainly do that as well. But it's an easy one to review.
Want to try to schedule another
Can
walk?
we try to schedule it right now? We have our next meeting in 2 weeks. And barring snow.
What's that dirty word you just?
Yeah, well, we had some on our back deck that may be still there, so it's threatening.
Yeah, pretty sure. What are you looking at, Jane?
Well, I am relatively free. I may not be able to do something this Thursday, but other than that, looks pretty good. And tomorrow afternoon, when I get my booster.
We'll probably have to schedule two
Yeah,
2 walks.
walks.
keep from having a quorum.
Okay.
The dreaded quorum.
Or you
I
could,
could
or you could
go,
post it,
What's that?
Yeah.
or you could post it as a public meeting.
But then that's opens up another can of worms.
Gotcha.
because-
Yep.
so maybe if we were to have 3 and me the first time, and I don't know, I can go a second time and explain it with, like, go one time with you all, and maybe I could go for a second little walk and with the rest. Or, I mean, we could publicly notice it. I mean, would you want to keep others from attending a site walk? Because that's basically what,
See,
if it were
it's a
noticed.
posted meeting, then it's an open meeting, so everybody has the quote opportunity to go on the sidewalk.
Yep.
So if
If that's not a problem, I don't really.
if that's not a problem, we can put,
I mean, that's up to the club. I mean, usually it's really more of an insurance type question, having the public out there. Okay, I mean, if you're fine with that, we can do it, or we can schedule a couple of different dates and we can do it that way. Really, whatever works best for the commission is
And
fine
the
with us.
other
With the weather
issue-
closing in, we probably should try to do it all at once, and if other people want to attend, I mean, they don't make any decisions, they ask questions, but, you know, it's just cover your tail type stuff. Because of
okay,
the open
so
meeting law.
if we post it, we need, what, 3 days?
48 hours.
48 hours.
So Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday?
I can't, this
Thur-
Thursday probably.
Thursday and Friday.
I could always go by myself, though.
What's that?
I could always go by myself if that was okay.
Mike's always there, so he never gets to leave. I'm pretty Friday, I'm wide open if you want to go out Friday, or some of you, or whatever works. Like, I'm more than happy to accommodate.
Let's see.
I can't do Friday.
Okay. I've got a 9:30 that I can't miss. 9:30.
What day are you looking at, Friday?
That's Friday.
Yeah, I'm open Friday today.
I'm open Friday too.
I know you don't work Friday afternoons, but
I don't. I work till 12:30, though.
till 12:30. How long do you think it'll take?
I have no idea. How long do you think it'll take?
Half an hour?
Yeah, I mean, it's wide open and we'll be able to see all of the components.
Why don't we do 12 and then you can go home from there? How's that?
I won't want to leave that fast, you know.
11:30.
Why, can someone not make it in the morning?
I've got
Yeah.
Carol's got a doctor's appointment 9:30, so I can make 11:30.
That works for
Sounds
me.
good. It'll get me out of the office and out of there.
Okay.
Meet at your building?
Meet at the clubhouse.
Meet at the
We'll have
clubhouse.
Golf carts ready.
Oh,
We'll do
Great.
golf carts out there.
Cool.
We got clubs too?
It's cold, so yeah, go ahead.
Nice.
does everybody know where that is?
Where would we park? I
Parking
take
lot?
it at the,
Main parking lot.
At the
Main parking
clubhouse?
lot,
We'll
Yeah.
have golf carts ready to go, and we'll just drive out.
we get to go on golf carts? Oh, boy.
Is it,
Okay.
does that work with people playing? We can work around that?
Yeah,
Okay.
November, December.
Hard hats.
No,
Well,
but-
I know, it's a crazy
No, they
year,
don't.
though.
Frost delay.
I was hoping they get rid of it altogether.
Is 11:30 okay with Friday?
It's tough to,
It should, I have a call that, hopefully, I can probably wrap it up by 11:30.
What about
I might be in
the
the parking lot on my
following
phone, but, you know.
If you want to set up a second time for anyone who can't make Friday for the following week, we could talk about that too.
Or even a rain date.
Yeah. It looks like it's going to be okay for Friday, weather-wise, but. Jane, you have my email if anything changes.
Okay.
You can.
Okay. You want to set up a alternative, or who can make what? Can you make, Rebecca, can you make
I can make
11:30?
it on Friday, yep.
And Rich, you said you could make Friday, okay,
I can make Thursday, but I can't make Friday. Same issue.
yeah. Jim?
probably can't make either, but I'm familiar with what they're
Okay,
trying to do out there in that pond and stream and
You've lost enough
crossing.
balls out there.
That's a tough hole, man. Push the pond back a little bit up the fairway. So I can cross it.
There you go.
Jeff?
Yeah, I have to look at my work schedule and see, but just go ahead and do it, and
All right, we'll keep it 11:30 on Friday then. Diana, can you post that, please?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have any comments from the audience?
Jane, you want to do one on a Thursday?
I don't think I can.
Okay.
Okay. I'll make a motion to continue the hearing.
I'll make a motion. No, second.
To our next meeting, 13th.
Anything in the public?
Hmm? What?
Public.
I asked if anybody had any
Oh.
comments. Yes, I did.
yes, you did.
You weren't listening.
You did.
Vouch, yeah.
You did.
All right, so we continue till our next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Sidewalk on Friday.
We'll see you, some of you Friday.
I think I gave up because of that whole one.
That's a tough hole.
At 7:20, we have a continuation for NOI 157-609, 28 Camp Road.
I have an email from Bill Buckley, they haven't been able to coordinate with the consultant, so please continue the hearing to December 13th.
Okay, somebody want to make that motion?
Make a motion to continue NOI 157-609.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
At 7:25 PM, we have a continuation of 157-610, 31 Water Street. Wait,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
No, I don't need that. One small would be easier for me.
one
Mr.
sec for
Buckley?
a sec while I rejoin, I'm sorry.
Are those that are participating in this meeting on Zoom, are they able to speak when asked?
Sure, if they have logged in, and I'm not sure what all the technical, but yes, they are allowed to speak.
So, ladies and gentlemen, excuse me, good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Buckley. I'm here representing the applicant, Steve and Greery. And also with me tonight is Attorney Frank Spillane. And so what I've just put up on the board and I've handed out actually is a colored version of the plan that I submitted last week to the commission with a cover letter with the revisions that we've made to the project. And what I'd like to just do is briefly go through the changes that we've made. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit to give you a better picture. So these modifications are as a result of discussions with the commission and as well as changes to the septic system. Excuse me again, as required by the Board of Health in our discussions with them. So we met with them twice, and at the last meeting on November 22nd, they granted approval for the septic system that you see on the plan today. So let me just give you a summary of the changes that we made to the plans, this plan here. So during one of the site walks we had, Jane did a review of it, walked part of it with Lauren, and there was a modification of some flags up in this area here, 114R and 115R. So those, they moved approximately 10 feet closer uphill from the lake. Look down here at the bottom. I don't know if you recall, but the septic system used to be located up in this area here. It was more than 100 feet away from the wetland. So what the Board of Health asked us to do was to try and get it as far away as possible from the wetland, from the lake. And so what we did is we reconfigured this lot 1 and lot 2, and we've created this kind of odd tail for lot 2, and we've put the septic system down in that corner there. So what that's done is that allowed us to put the system more than 150 feet away, meeting the local bylaw. And it also allowed us to meet more than 200 feet away from the water body, which meets the state DEP standard. And they granted several waivers, which we listed on the front here. Modification of the lot lines, as I just pointed out, to accommodate that. Down here in this corner here, during one of our site walks, request was made to, can we cut back the driveway? This went out, I believe at the time it was like 45 feet. And so somebody asked, does it have to be that big? Can we bring that back? And so we said, yes, we could do that. And so now it's back, it's about, I think we moved it in 10 feet from where it was. So it's about 35 feet now in this area. What that's allowed us to do is to bring in the disturbance line. It used to go pretty much along here, along the edge of the 25-foot no-touch, and then we kind of tailed it off there. what we've done now is by bringing that in, and we also eliminated the rain garden there, which I'll talk about in a moment. And now that has allowed us to bring this line in of disturbance, and this is actually the line of where the erosion control barrier will be. We've cut back, we've pitched the driveway, so let me follow up with that. Before, the driveway was pitched this way, and then we were gonna put everything in a rain garden down there. So we've eliminated that, and so that's allowed us again to move it in, and what we've done is I've regraded this to pitch it back in this direction. So the driveway goes down to here and then up. And what that does is it pushes everything down, and during our site walks, if everybody remembers, there's a depression. This is a good-sized depression in here. So now what we've done is pitched everything so that the runoff will go into that depression in this area here, which will remain natural, and you'll be able to infiltrate down there. And the same in this location, it runs from the peak, which is about that chunk of ledge that sticks out of the ground, goes down there. And we've put a stone swale in there, so everything pitches to the right as you're looking at this drawing into that low area. So we over here, I'm going to go over in this area. Before, if you remember, this patio was teed off, it was squared off. So now we've cut that back so that this is now 10 feet. You can walk out and still walk through, but now it's been cut back, which is a little bit less, closer to the water body. And one of the things we did, and one of the questions we had was, the patio, can we do something about that? So I looked at that and I said, okay, we can do permeable pavers, but I also would like to give us the alternative. If we didn't want to do permeable pavers, we can construct a rain garden along the edge of it in order to capture runoff through there. Right now, I'm not showing the rain garden permeable pavers, but so the path to the dock, again, up in this area here, before we had a 6-foot wide path, and now that has been cut back to 3-foot wide. We're just showing it as crushed stone. We put some water bars in there. It's a relatively short area, so we put a water bar in here. I know it's hard to see, and we put one over here. And what that does is, when the water runs downhill, it doesn't continue to do so. The water bar will push it off to the side. So there's one in this area here, and then there's one in this area here, and it pushes it off into the vegetated area on the side. There was a question about the dock. So we show the dock, right on the edge of the water. It's not up onto the land. We should have had it shown up in that area there. So it sits on the edge of the water, and we also show steps going in. And those are steps, they're stairs. They're not steps. We're not talking about altering the wetlands in that area there. They'll have to create a set of stairs, probably aluminum, that will go over it down into the dock area. We've added notes. There was some questions on materials, grinding, stumps, et cetera. So we've added some notes. Some of this one note up top was already there. That was the Jonathan Green Black Beauty seed mix on the 3 sides of the house. This side, front side, right side. This part of the house will be just regular loam and seed. And again, as we talked about, that seed is a minimalist. It doesn't require water, it doesn't require fertilizer, and doesn't require a lot of maintenance. The stumps, some concern about stumps being pulled out of the ground if they're close to the 25-foot no disturb. So we added this notation here: any stumps within 35 feet of the wetlands shall be ground and not pulled, and that shouldn't have any impact at all on any of the work we're proposing there. No burial of stumps on the site. That's pretty standard, but we just added that on there to make sure the contractor understands that. And then any material stockpiles shall be outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. We don't expect a lot of materials. If you go and look at construction sites, there's not a lot of material stockpiles. The only material stockpiles I could see here would be when they scrape up the topsoil and put it into a pile. So now we will be outside of the buffer zone. I've colored this up so you can see it a little better. the red is there's a 25-foot node, which is the hatched red. The heavier red, which runs all the way around the site, or around the edge of it. This is the limit of disturbance. That's a silt sock, as we pointed out. We've also shown the limit of clearing, which we had marked on the site so you could see it better. So that's in red. This green area here, this is a planting area against the limit of clearing. And so down in this area here, it's about 5 feet wide. And then as you move up in this area, it's 10 feet wide. So we looked at that and in conjunction with some of Jane's comments and recommendations. So we're calling for it to be low bush blueberry bushes. So they're only a couple of feet high, but they are native, and they'll hold the ground, and it will be a transition between the grass, the bushes, and the land that's being left undisturbed. And I just put a note there that other material may be substituted if unavailable with the approval of conservation agents. Sometimes we run into that. We, plantings plans, and all of a sudden, it's not around. So we have to go back and talk to regulatory authorities and say, this isn't available, could we use this? And it just makes that kind of, clarifies that comment. So, as I've mentioned before, and I'll mention again, so the modifications, they're intended to mitigate the proposed construction of the home, to provide protection to the resource areas on the lot, which are BVW, bank, bordering land subject to flooding, and land under the water, which is the actual water body. There's no disturbance of any resource areas by the design. No resource areas are being disturbed. And there's only a minimal alteration, the 25-foot, no disturb for the construction of that path so they could access the dock. So there's no alteration to the resource. We recognize that. So all the activity we've talked about here, work in the buffer zone, it's designed to ensure that the activity in the buffer zone does not alter the resource area. That's what we're talking about here. The buffer zone is not a resource area, but it's an area that needs to protect the resource area, and that's what we're doing here. So as a recap of some of the things that we're doing, again, let me first point out, as I mentioned at the very beginning, I think David asked me this question, this project is not subject to the stormwater standards because it's a single-family house. So, but what we've done is we've captured the runoff from the roof and infiltrated it. And the runoff from the driveway, there is no direct runoff toward the lake. It is into this depression where it's allowed to naturally recharge, which is a preferred method, and further away, which is, again, not within the board's purview, but is important, the portion of it that drains back toward Water Street, there's another depression down in that area there, and it will run off in that area as well. So we're working on recharge. The planting strip that we're talking about, we're planting it along the edge there. That provides a transition from the grass to the woodland. We tried to put a seed mix in there that doesn't, one of the things we worry about with a lake is phosphorus, which a lot of it comes from a fertilizer. So again, the mix that we're proposing doesn't require it, but it's still green, doesn't require cutting or a lot of cutting. The septic system we're proposing, again, is outside any activity where the commission considers, but it's still important because, again, one of the things you worry about on a lake is nitrogen getting into the water body. So the system is 200 feet away from it, and in addition to that, we're still proposing to use a FAST system, which, again, is a nitrogen reduction system. You guys have seen it many times in Foxborough. It's been used for decades. And as the Board of Health pointed out at a meeting the other day, one of the members asked the agent, if we ever had a problem with it, and the answer is no. These systems get monitored every 6 months, 6 to 12 months, and they have to be inspected, and they have to have a maintenance program. So it's not like probably your house or my house, where if you don't feel like pumping your septic tank for 10 years, you don't have to pump it. This gets monitored, and reports go into the Board of Health. So that concludes my presentation for tonight. Just ready to open it for questions.
By the pool, is that a stone wall? Those,
Yes. So what that is,
why does it go all the way down? I can't-
in order to hit the grade there, what we're trying to do is give this, it holds the pool up, it holds the pot up, but this area becomes a relatively flat area. So it's a yard for the person to use.
That's being altered, okay.
And it's no more than 3 feet high. At its highest point, it's 3 feet. And then it tapers down to just 1 foot at the end there.
Bill, can you refresh my memory? I know we asked the question, I don't remember the answer. What kind of pool is this? Like, what sort of, is it saltwater, is it freshwater,
It's a
DE?
saltwater pool.
It's a saltwater pool. So when you have to clean and do maintenance on a saltwater pool, how does that work?
Well, it's not like a diatomaceous earth pool, where
So there's
you,
a filter, right? It's got to filter stuff out. Where does that go?
it just goes into the filter.
So like when you clean the filter out, it's like you backwash it or something like that. Like, how does that work?
I don't know. I don't know exactly how it works. I've never had a saltwater pool. But I know you don't backwash it like a diatomaceous earth pool where the diatomaceous earth goes out and into the water or into, wherever it goes to.
So I guess I would just be curious. I know that we've heard some concerns about, like, anytime you got a pool near a body of water, just like, so what is the protocol? How does that happen? Where does the stuff that the filter is filtering out go, and how is it handled?
Bill, has the applicant proposed anything along the 25-foot? Whether something to mark that area, whether it's a stone or a fence, a split rail fence?
Well, it's the blueberry bushes is what we're proposing, a 5 to 10 foot wide strip of blueberry bushes through that area there. That was the demarcation around the edge of it from here. Oops, there's a lag here. From this point here, so all the way around to this point here.
Okay.
We're not proposing a fence, no.
I don't know if the commission would want something more permanent, though. I think the 10 to 5 foot strip is great. I don't know, how do we come up with a 10 to 5 foot width, though? Was that just a
Well,
number?
actually, Jane and I did. So if you look at this area here, you still got to let the person, you still got to give them access to their
Sure.
yard. So, that's like 7 or 8 feet. That's like 5 or maybe
tight
7
in that
or
area.
8.
Yeah.
And then up in here, what's that? That's about 20 feet, 25. So we're not talking about, there's not a lot of space, and we're kind of giving it so that you can actually get down in the area and use it. And
I would suggest maybe a fence, like a split rail fence that would go around that area. Right on the other side of the blueberry bush area, right along the 25 foot. How are the slopes right now, too? Are they stabilized?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the things we did is we graded this so that there's very little grading toward the lake. How we did that is because of this, it sits on a ridge.
Yeah.
And we've held the grade on that ridge. That grade on that ridge is about 249, 250. And then, so our top of foundation is 250. And so there's very little grading beyond it. So it's not like, London Estates, those houses, there's a ton of fill, it grades off substantially. And here, there's very little grading. The most grading that's taken place over here is over on the left. But this is kind of a hole here. So that's why this wall is here. Again, it's 4 feet high. And then over here, where the pool is, this is, that's maybe a 2 foot elevation difference max. And then other than that, around the lot, around it, it's, within at least maybe 2 or 3 feet. One of the things we did is we marked the grades on the stakes so everybody could look at it and go, finish grade, finish grade, finish grade, and see how we've set it so there's very little grading beyond where we need to be.
Okay. But like the areas from the 25-foot down to the resource area, those slopes are sufficiently stabilized right now with some sort of vegetation or cover,
It's a
right?
pretty decently vegetated area, I think.
Yeah.
If you've walked it, it's
Okay.
not,
It's not barren, it's.
Yeah,
there's a lot
well,
of growth in
I would
there.
think this would be an opportunity to further stabilize it if we had to.
Yeah, are they likely to stay stable once you have taken down all the trees that are, the roots, there's large root systems there, and you're going right up at a lot, so close to that 25 foot?
I mean, the areas close to it, that was one of the comments, excuse me, that was made at the last meeting. So that's one of the reasons why, if it's within 10 feet, so if it's within 35 feet of the water, within 10 feet of the 25-foot no disturb, which we will grind the stumps. So when you grind the stumps, you're not ripping out all the roots, you're just grinding the body of the stump instead of ripping that out. So we shouldn't have that activity. And as I talked about on the walks, we did the walk, and there are definitely some big pine trees along the edges there, but we're not really touching any of the stuff that's holding that slope up.
Did you say the runoff from the roofs are going to be collected into that area that you have?
So what we're proposing is, and this is what we do on almost all the projects, is in Foxborough, you have to capture, it's a subdivision requirement, you have to capture, if this was under the DEP stormwater standards, again, which doesn't apply here, you have to do a recharge of 1 inch, of a 1 inch recharge in a sensitive area, which this is. Foxborough requires 2 inches. So what we will do here is, in the front and back, we'll recharge the roof runoff. This is the approximate area we're showing, this is the approximate area we're showing. I don't know where all the gutters are. It just hasn't been designed yet. And so when that happens, what we'll do is, we go back and look at it and say, oh, okay, this much gutter, this much roof is going in here. We'll need 3 chambers instead of 2, or whatever it is. So those are the areas we'll be recharging the roof in, and again, roof runoff is clean. The driveway runoff goes in this area here. So from the top and from the garage, this is a low point. It's pitched in here. This is a depression. Now, and the soils are really good. It will allow it to recharge naturally.
Nice.
So you have a lot of what look like very good mitigation strategies that you've added to this. But
Yes.
I think my biggest concern is that in developing this project, you sort of skipped over sort of the first 2 processes of avoidance and minimization. And I know that you've kept it outside of the no activity zone, but that buffer zone still falls under our jurisdiction if it's going to alter the resources that we're protecting. And I feel like the extent of this project, even with all these mitigation strategies in place, is going to impact the resources that we're trying to protect. And it doesn't seem like there's been much at all of minimization or avoidance thought out beforehand. I know that, the owner wants to enjoy the natural beauty of this space, but I feel like he hasn't put any thought into protecting that natural beauty with this particular plan for the project, where something smaller or, turned sideways or something could go a long way to help, because it's really taking up that whole buffer zone at the end of the peninsula. And I've done a lot of reading in the last few weeks about the importance of the width of a buffer zone and protecting the water quality and the wildlife habitat, things like the temperature of the water, which, even just small alterations can affect a lot of things like algae blooms, which I'm sure the owner doesn't want to live on a lookout all of that water and just have an algal bloom to look out over. So
That's a really great point, that you're right, the owner does not want to. He has, I'm sure, the most waterfront of anybody else on the lake, and probably one of the larger lots. So you're right, he is very concerned about it, and, we have, I believe we've met every standard that we have to meet under the Wetlands Protection Act and the local bylaw. So, making it smaller, this is the house he would like to build. This is the home. It is a very large lot, and, we're clearing about much less than half of it for this activity on this, not even including the other piece. So, I would, I think we have mitigated it. I think we have limited clearing. We've mitigated the stormwater, though we don't have to. We've talked about recharge. We've put landscape buffers. If the commission is looking for a fence, that's, it's not something that we've said no to in the past. We've gone overboard as far as as we talked about, as the nitrogen reduction system. So I think we've done an awful lot in order to address the issues that are within the Wetlands Protection Act purview. I understand there are issues about the view, issues about don't want that much cleared. Again, I think we meet the requirements of the bylaw, the more stringent requirements of the bylaw and of the, definitely of the act.
Two things, Bill. I've yet to see anything about a wildlife evaluation. The evaluation that the buffer zones provide to the wildlife associated with the resource areas.
It's our position that under the Wetlands Protection Act, the impact of wildlife, the requirement to do a wildlife study is based on alteration of the resource area. So filling in the 10-year flood zone, altering a wetland, altering land underwater, bordering land subject to flooding, that triggers it. And we do not trigger any of those activities, and there is nothing in the local bylaw that requires us to do a wildlife study for that as well. It's the Wetlands Protection Act, so that's every project that involves clearing land will have some impact on wildlife. But the question is, does it fall under the purview? And it's our opinion that this project meets the standard and does not require a wildlife study.
But being that this extensive buffer area is being removed on three sides, then there's possibly an impact of the wildlife in the area, whether it's aerial, on the ground, in the trees, and they're associated with the resource areas around it in the water.
There's no doubt there is an impact on wildlife. There's just no doubt. We're not saying that it's not. We're just saying that there is no requirement to do a wildlife study. And what will the study tell us? That it's going to have an impact on wildlife? Yes. And then what? We're not altering any resource areas. That's really what it goes back to. It's the Wetlands Protection Act, and how what triggers the wildlife study is impact on the wetlands. I mean, physical impact, not potential impact or anything like that. So, I don't think it's going to tell us anything that's going to trigger any change to our project, unless you can think of something. So what is it going to tell us? I mean, what is it going to tell us? Is it going to tell us that, is it going to be less habitat? Yes. But does that mean we have to change the project? No.
But could it also tell us if there's any threat to the habitat or particular species that could be of a threatened nature, not rare, but a threatened or a lower category? Again, these comments were provided in previous hearings of concern from the neighbors and the association. And the effort, at least looking into it to see if there is an impact, being such a large buffer area is being removed, should be added to the review. Yeah, you may not be directly impacting a resource area, but the buffer zone has a very important feature in protecting those areas and a wildlife habitat, aerial, mid, or on the land, should be reviewed as part of the process of saying that you are not disturbing or eliminating these type of species habitats based on the comments that were made by, previous neighbors in the association.
Again, we're not disagreeing that there will be habitat will be disrupted as it is on every single project. Unlike something like Rich's, which was on pavement, but every project is it. So there's nothing in the bylaw that requires us to do that. I've never, in 30-something years, seen this commission ever require it based on buffer zone activity, which is what this is. So I'm afraid that I disagree. And, if you can give me a specific thing, just, not a study, if there's something specific, like a specific scope, not a fishing expedition, we would consider that. But again, I hate to say no to things, but some things we just will say no to.
Would the applicant, your client, be willing to at least have a limited wildlife evaluation to at least answer some of the comments and concerns? Like you said, not a fishing expedition.
If you have a specific scope of work with a specific question to be answered that's limited and is relevant to the Wetlands Protection Act, yes, we would definitely consider it, but not a you're gonna take away habitat. I know. We do it on every project. So I guess that's the answer. None of the comments I've heard or read in the last couple of meetings have been any specificity. It's just, there's nice birds that are out there, and we see deer and things like that. But so I'd want to see something with some specificity tied to the regulation and the bylaw, which is nothing in the bylaw, but tied to it that we could look at, and we would consider that.
I think if we could come up with a limited scope for them to, a guideline with Jane's help, considerable help, and working with Bill, that at least we can address some of these comments.
So in our wetlands protection regulations, under the performance, what's it called? Under the buffer zone section, it does say that proposed activities on the buffer zone shall maintain adequate cover vegetation that will do several things, but among them are provide wildlife habitat and corridors for wildlife movement and maintain ambient shade conditions to preserve natural water temperatures. It seems to me that those could be addressed by an evaluation of the wildlife that, we could see the impact on.
Put something specific together and we will do it, and we definitely consider it, Don't want to say no, but if you can specify something, if there was some type of species there that was endangered or of concern or something, and you said, how is this going to impact that, even if it wasn't listed as, we can look at that and say, oh, all right. But I haven't seen anything to that effect in any of the documents or any of the comments we've seen. We've just heard the general, geez, there's a lot of wildlife out there. Okay.
But then again, we don't know if there are species that are used in that buffer area that's associated with the resources or coming up out of or in the trees, unless someone at least can go in there and do an evaluation.
Right. So it's not the way the bylaw regulations are written is if it has been certified, or the correct term is, I'm not sure what the correct term is, by National Heritage or something like that, then we are obligated to do that. We're not obligated to go in and search for things. It's a fishing expedition. So that's why I say, if you want a specific project, specific issue tied to the bylaw, not necessarily the regulation has to be tied to the bylaw. I haven't seen anything in our bylaw that says anything about wildlife. So there's the Wetlands Protection Act, which talks about wildlife, and then our bylaw, whatever it is. So if you could find something to tie it to that, we would do it.
Okay.
Just one other thing. Remember we discussed in the buffer zone on the east side, having some type of it's great about the low bush blueberries, but you don't have that transition to the maybe 4 or 5 foot high plants or trees or high bush blueberries or
Right.
whatever, pepper bush, to reduce the heat impact on the east side.
You did mention that. You were supposed to remind me. We were talking about that today, and I said, Frank, remind me to, if I don't mention that, remind me. So I was out there, and I meant to call you. I wanted to call you to come out and look at it with me. So I was out there in an afternoon, and I was standing over in that area there, and I'm looking to the southwest, because that was an afternoon, so I was looking southwest. And yes, there's going to be trees taken down in this area, but there are still a massive number of really high trees there that I think are going to provide shade for that area. And the house will also be there providing it. And as you go out, that bank goes down. So and when I was looking at it going, okay, where could I plant these trees? I'd have to cut down trees to plant trees. So I didn't see a good area to do that. I mean, I'd be glad to go out there and look at it with you again. And if you could, and we still have the stakes out there, you could show me where you think, like a certain type of tree could go. But I didn't see any. I think it's,
I'm not saying trees in particular, but I'm saying, even shrubs, a certain, pepper bushes or the high bush blueberries, anything to get that 5 foot level of shading from the direct sun coming in. Because when we went logging, we were clearing out these areas when I was a forester, there'd be a 30, 40 degree difference once you open up the forest canopy. And that, what it does is it heats up the sides of the trees that are left, and you get a lot of sprouting in that. And it just heats up the ground right underneath it, easily within 10, 20 feet. So what we're trying to do is keep the heat from being conveyed into any rain or any water that's flowing into the ground, that eventually, over the years, will eventually get to the lake.
so you're looking at, I mean, I'm sorry, that's my fault. I thought the notes I took said, notes I was looking at talked about trees on that side.
I think you're just talking about filling in the space with low bushes,
Sweet pepper,
shrubbery
and
type of
high
thing to
bush
keep
Yeah,
blueberry.
just start them, and eventually others might take over, but there weren't many down there except right down by the water. The high bush blueberries need a little more moisture than coming up that slope. But I think we should consider that it's going to take 10+ years for any seedlings underneath what's good there now to start growing up high enough to start reducing the heat impact.
Okay, so I'll talk to Lauren about that and see what she can come up with for plantings up higher there. Maybe instead of those low bush blueberries in that area, we can do whatever, sweet pepper bush or whatever.
I'm thinking a little bit more,
Towards the water.
towards the water, mid-slope, towards the mid-slope to top slope.
You
Are you
want us-
talking
you
about
want-
the 25-foot
You
no
want us to get in
disturb?
the 25-foot?
Yeah, he is.
25-foot no
Planting within the
disturb?
20 by hand.
I think that's growing the way it wants to grow at this point, enhancing the outside of the 25-foot that they plan to clear anyways, or just leaving it, I think is the best bet. Because I think if you start to go in there and monkey around, there's a very thick duff layer, and the plants are growing the way they want to right now. And I think that they're growing according to their conditions, the light and the air and the
Which
everything.
will change dramatically the minute
Right.
they.
Well, it
cut
will,
down.
it will. But where are you talking about? You're talking about the
East
north
side.
side?
He's talking in here.
On that side?
Yeah, so like, I mean, you got the sun coming in this way, in summertime especially. There's nothing in here to keep the sunlight hitting, going down to the base of that tree, down into the water.
Yeah.
Putting something in here, Dave,
The sun will
what Dave was
contain.
suggesting
Oh.
is putting some stuff in here, it's gonna block that sun from going to the base of the trees into the water.
I think a wider buffer zone is the only way to do that, really. You're going to create a heat island with the surface of the roof and all.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna get a lot of heat.
And around we go.
And with prevailing westerly winds, it's always gonna be blowing down that. But that was my last comment.
Okay.
So where are we on that comment? I mean, so where are we on that?
I think, could you just talk to Lauren and see what she may think about that?
Okay, but are we working in the 25-foot no touch, or what are we doing?
No,
That's-
I would recommend, rather than that, just make the buffer wider. I just don't see why tromping it down and planting things is going to
Enhance it.
enhance it. I think maybe like Bill said, instead of, or did you say it? Instead of the low bush blueberries, perhaps sweet pepper bush or something that is higher. But I think you're basically fighting an uphill battle with that.
Downhill.
Downhill,
Yeah.
pun intended, yeah.
So Bill, as we've been sitting here, I've looked at some more on the driveway. That's a pretty steep slope, is that correct, from where that driveway goes down to the 25-foot on the left side?
Yes, it's a hole there.
I'm sorry?
That's where that hole is.
Yep.
So you go in, and it comes down, and it goes up. So we'll be filling that about, so that's 245, it's about 4-foot fill in that area there.
Right, so you've got a pretty steep grade going down from the driveway down to the 25-foot.
It's a 3-to-1, it looks worse than it is.
I mean, I understand, but so is there anything, so what's keeping any water from that driveway going down that way?
So it's pitched to this point, oops, you can't see. Sorry. It's pitched to this point here. So
You're
251, 250, 249,
Okay.
248, and then this goes back up to 249, 249.5. And it's pitched so that this stone swale will capture the runoff and direct it down in this direction. So you won't get runoff. It's not a crown. It's not a crown, it's flat. So it's gonna go down to that point. It's not like a roadway. If this was a roadway, that grade would be something like this. It would be more of an arrow. Actually, it'd be like this. So that's the idea, is to capture the driveway runoff, put it into that natural low area, which sits over here, and then just let it infiltrate.
Bill, with the septic system being moved,
Yes.
we had discussed the possibility of even moving the whole house another 10 feet away from is that something that is possible, or anything to get it a little bit further away, and then that would allow you to build up that man-made buffer zone a little bit. Even 10 feet would do a lot. And I assume your client isn't interested in turning the house.
Sorry?
Your client isn't interested in turning it sideways. We've
No.
already discussed that, right?
No.
Okay, so how about,
10 feet, yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, I could definitely move that house back 10 feet if that was,
that would give us more room to work in right on the buffer zone.
it would give us more room to work in the front as it faces north. It's not going to give us more room to the left or to the right as you look at the plan. We're just sliding it back. So yes, I could do that.
Yeah.
I think that would
You start.
work very much in favor of sliding the whole thing back.
Yeah, what did I say, 100 feet?
If you want to do like 50.
That's what I heard.
Yes, I mean, definitely.
That would help, I think, that.
don't feel you have to limit it to 10 feet. You could go
Yeah,
further.
right.
Bill, what is the standard practice in doing the limit of clearing? You gonna designate that first?
So typically what we do is we'll go out and we'll flag, which we've already done, the limit of clearing with a certain color flag. And if a contractor, you know, the lumber guy, whoever he is, he knows if there's a flag on the tree, don't touch it. So he stays inside the flag. So when we flag it, after it's cleared, all the flags should still be up. And that's how we do it. And then what we would do at that point is we would, in our sequence of work, we want him to, you cut the trees, whatever they are, pull them out, and then we put the erosion control in, and then we would stump or grind, depending on whether it is, and then you'd start the work. That would be the normal sequence. And that's what we put in our notice. That's normally what we do, or we recommend being done. Because trying to get a truck in there laying silt sock, which is heavy, that 12-inch silt sock, it's very difficult. So that's why we want to cut the trees, but don't disturb the topsoil yet. Lay the silt sock, and then you come in and stump.
I think, wouldn't it be better to have some type of plastic fence or something like that? Considering two other places that it went beyond flags. It just went cutting.
Well,
I
I
think,
mean, at the beginning, you mean?
I think he's referring to Garrett's Plain Road, but other than that,
Well, yeah, I guess. I suppose we could put up a,
well, being in such a sensitive area and such as a,
Just to define it better, yeah.
I think,
it'll also make it the definition of, grinding the stumps within 10 feet of that line.
yeah, we
You have to measure out.
could do that. So we can add an orange construction fence to the silt sock. Where do we do that? Lawson Farm. So we did that. So we can add that to the detail.
okay.
Before the cut?
Yeah, we could put that up first. That's easy to schlep in. And then they could put the silt sock in later.
Any other comments from the board before I open it up to the audience?
On the fencing, would it be better to have cement posts put in instead of fences that isn't gonna be there in a while, or
Oh, I mean.
for the border?
Rounds.
For the
Mark on
border.
the 25-foot?
We can discuss that. Any comments from the audience? Okay, yeah, you can use that mic.
Well, I don't know about that. I think just submit them for comment. We usually ask that these things be submitted to me before the hearing.
Right. Well,
But
this is the old plan, unfortunately. I didn't know that there was a new revised
why don't you
plan.
speak to the chair about it, because he's the one who allows people to speak or not.
Who is the chair?
I'm the guilty person.
How are you? My name is Wayne Tavares.
Could you use the mic, please?
Sure. I have a resume, and I based a lot of my findings on the old plan. The new plan came along. I'm going to be the devil's advocate tonight, so I'm not going to let you go home too early.
Okay, but
I have a
use the-
resume.
use the mic, please.
Sure,
Make
I have a
that-
resume here, if you care to see it. I'm a landscape architect registered in Massachusetts, a professional wetlands scientist, and a construction supervisor. Currently, I go before about 20 towns in the south of the Cape, all of the Cape, Nantucket, South Shore, and up to Bristol County. So I got a flavor of what you're going through tonight. And the proponent is obviously using your bylaw, which is strict and lawful. However, you have discretion here. And I just want to go through this point by point, hopefully without interference, and bring up my ideas and thoughts of this project. Number one, we have 36 other people, families on this board, most of which are opposed to the project and wondering why a lot that was unbuildable in 1970 is currently potentially buildable. 50 years later, when the laws, the Board of Health laws, and the conservation laws have become more stringent, how can vacant land become buildable? The average, they're so interested in it, my clients, that they did some research, and they averaged the 36 houses around the area. This is not conservation-oriented. I hope you'll let me talk about some sideline issues here, besides conservation. The average house is 2,800 square feet.
Unfortunately,
Right.
that's a planning board issue or whatever. It's not a
Okay.
Try
There
to
are
stay-
also 100.
try to stay with the conservation
Right,
issues,
okay. The
please.
proposed house is 7,200 square feet, and as you know, it's 25 feet from the pond BVW and just on the top of the bank. So those two elements are there. The existing house, which is there now on the other lot, is 82 feet away. It gives you some idea of the concept of conservation that they had. You have discretion here. You have bylaws and so forth. When I didn't draw this up, I just copied this from the old plan, and unfortunately, it's been modified. But some of the things are still pertinent here. This is an aesthetic, non-conforming architectural imposition. The owners of this property own the pond. They own this pond, and they're great stewards of the pond. They are concerned about a new issue coming in closer to the pond than any of the houses that are there. Also, on the notice of intent, in number 2, item 5, has alternate analysis been done and been attached to this? And there's no alternate attachment. You have some revisions that have gone on, but you don't have an alternative. Again, I'm giving you a flavor of some 20 towns, of which, I'll be honest with you, there's not a town in those 20 towns that would allow such a project. The performance standards that are on here, public and private water supply are an issue, but it's not an issue because they don't have anything done. The proponent has done a better job in the second go-around with groundwater recharge. He's done it through downspouts. He has a tremendous galley that picks up all the roof water. I question the topography changes that are in here. He had a small rain garden. I had it here. It was taken off on this particular plan. It's insufficient. The grading doesn't show where all the water is going into the ground. He says it's going to be absorbed. It's going through pipes under the driveway. We know where the roof water is going, but we don't have great topographical changes. Now, these are little details. Flood control, the inland bank needs protection. It needs protection. This house is being built right on top of this. Every single other town I know has a setback requirement, and that's where the proponent has me, because there's no setback requirement in your town, but you have discretion. You ask for 10 feet. I would ask for 50 feet, for example. Why does the house have to be big, so big? It is a large lot, there's no question about it. About 25% of the lot is just the entrance road that comes in. According to my measurements on the plan prior to this, it has been slightly improved because the septic system has been moved, had 33,000 square feet removed in order to build this house. A 7,200 square foot house on a 33,000 square foot wipeout, total wipeout of vegetation. And there was a point that came up as far as wildlife habitat. There's a lot of literature out there. The proponent is right again. You don't have anything that keys off or kicks off wildlife habitat study. And I would guess that there would be a great fear in doing that because a border, the literature that's out there says a 100-foot border is suggested. and it coincides with your jurisdiction of 100 feet. 75 feet is getting kind of skinny, and 50 feet, no town that I go in would allow less than 50 feet, and that's from the BVW, or in most cases, the top of that inland bank. They have restrictions on that. Every resource area that I know has a certain setback requirement. You have jurisdiction over 100 feet. If you look at this plan that sits up there, you'll see in Lot 2, where it says Lot 2, 94,683 square feet, is a perfect plateau for a house of the same magnitude as the other 36 residents in the house. Actually, the house that's there now that is to be taken down, I don't understand, one thing a point of interest, I don't understand how two different lots has the same notice of intent. They're asking to tear down the original house in this notice of intent. Is that correct?
I think is it coming down now? It is coming down now, yeah.
Oh, it's coming down now, but that was done on a notice of intent? Or how was that done?
It is being requested under this notice of intent.
We've been concentrating, we've been concentrating on the new house, and actually I haven't considered the old house coming down, quite frankly.
Okay, but that was done under a separate notice of intent, it was a separate lot?
No, we didn't.
No,
You did it under the same notice of intent, two lots on the same notice of intent? How was that done? How was that legal? There are two assessed values on this property.
You're incorrect.
One for 26, 10526, and the other for 10527.
I'll have to refer to my manager on that, the technicalities.
It has been one lot altogether, apparently, to my knowledge. And Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, which has recently been subdivided? Is that true?
It's listed it's under one deed, and it's listed as two parcels.
Two parcels
Exactly.
under
One
one
is
Under the
being-
same contiguous ownership.
Right, but one is coded
Can
1320
I stop?
unbuildable.
Are we going to interrupt
One
each other?
person
or-
speak at a time.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Spillane,
The assessors currently have two,
why don't you slide the mic over, so.
Sure.
the assessors currently have it as two lots. It was subdivided years ago. But what is being proposed here are two different lots with a roadway, which is in front of the planning board. So the lot that he's looking at is not the lot that you're looking at. The assessors coded it as unbuildable because the lot only had 50-foot frontage and therefore is coded unbuildable for assessing purposes. It doesn't mean that it's unbuildable. I could tell you off the top of my head, a half dozen lots that have been billed as buildable, and once they come and see Mr. Buckley or myself, or the town, they're told, no, it's not buildable for whatever reason. So the fact the assessors are stating it's unbuildable doesn't mean it's unbuildable, but it's a different lot than what you're looking at. What's happening is the two lots that are on that peninsula right now have been changed so that it's really three parcels. You have a lot 1, a lot 2, and a parcel for the roadway. So the two lots that are being presented from the planning board, which is now in front of you, are two buildable lots because they have enough area, they have enough frontage, they have enough width, all the requirements for two buildable lots off of a roadway subdivision. You know? And these lots conform to the area requirements. Many of the old lots that are on this lake are smaller than the requirements of 40,000 square feet in the area. I mean, he spoke to the current house and how far it is off. That house was built in the early 1900s. There was no zoning back then. You know, they probably put the house where they thought it was best situated. Back then, you built houses closer to the road than off the road that you do now. So the location of the existing house, in my eyes, with regard to all this, is irrelevant. It was built so long ago.
And anyone that's gone through it can see that it is a tear down. It can't be fixed up. We've already been in front of the Historic Commission. They've reviewed it and say there's no reason to try to save it, and have given us a demolition permit.
So we have two, if I could jump in, we have two issues on the table then, as far as a notice of intent for the tear down of the house on one lot. Certainly, that's a different lot. And then the issue we're talking about right now. Three things have to happen in order to make this buildable, this lot buildable. One of them was taken care of the other day. And you should ask the question, this is a great question, the Board of Health passed this last week, and I'm sorry I'm on board so late in this game, but the Board of Health passed this, but made a suggestion because 3 waivers were asked for and granted at the time. But they asked to push this septic system back to 200 feet, which is on this new plan. And you ought to consider the same thing with the house. You're looking at a house that's tremendous in size, eats up a lot of this lot, and you have the discretion of a wildlife habitat study, which I'm sure will turn this project around, because they'll ask for a 75-foot separation. The DEP, if they get involved in this, will come down and probably suggest the same thing, because their rules are slightly different than yours. Yours should be more stricter than theirs. You can be more strict with your home rule. But in reading your bylaws, I have towns with 40 pages of bylaws, and yours are short. And I don't mean to pick on you. I'm not picking on you. I'm making an observation, so forgive me. I'm sorry. I have a few other things to mention. On the old plan, and it looks like in this new plan, the limit of work line, there were some areas on that old plan where it came within 12 feet. It actually intruded into that area, that no-touch area, just to build where the limit of work line was. And when you put limit of work line, I'm a contractor, former contractor, used to have 35 people working in site construction. We did $500,000 to $5 million jobs. We did big construction. A lot of it was designed by my company. I had 5 landscape architects work for me. We know construction in and out. And when you put up a limit of work line, you have to put it right where it's supposed to be, and you tell the guys not to go any further. If you put it another 5 feet in, they're going to take advantage of that, and they're going to go to that 5 feet, and you're going to have that disturbed. You don't need this line of high bush blueberries that's going down there if you allow the land to remain. You have to be careful where you put that limit of work line. So basically, I'd like to put it 75 feet away. There is an area here. They took away the plan on the, could they put it back, please? Since that's the plan of record, and you have a provision in the notice of intent to ask for an alternate analysis, you can come in with a smaller house that's in keeping with that neighborhood that would sit on the plateau to the right of the cul-de-sac. Could you, please?
He's working on it. There you go.
There we go, yes, yeah. And then could he, I got to see the cul-de-sac a little bit more. Can he push the cul-de-sac up? There we go. Thank you, thank you. But you can see by the topography that's there, the 250 mark is right there. This is the same elevation that is used for the house in proper. You come in, you have less intrusion on the site. You site that house where it says Lot 2, 94,683 square feet. You make it of a size that's somewhat in keeping and normal. And you get your wildlife habitat study. You should demand that. This is not a question. It's not in your bylaw, but you should demand it, because you'll find all the literature. Somebody should point out the literature that is out there that suggests this 100-foot to 75 to 50. 50 is absolutely minimum, and you don't have it here. You get 25. So I'm suggesting a lot of towns, they go 0 to 50, no touch, no build. And then they go 50 feet to 100, maybe. I was just involved in a town next door to you, where it was an existing house with fill that went over the 50-foot line to a BVW, exact situation here. he was in violation. I had to get him out of a pickle, and we proposed to remove enough fill to go to the 50-foot line. And they said, no, go to the 60-foot line, because they used their discretion to do that. He was allowed to allow so much fill. This is non-structural,
Let's
people.
keep it to.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I get carried away every once in a while. The volume of fill to come in and out hasn't been discussed. It's not on the plan. When you remove so much material from a site, you're excavating and so forth, you're entitled to know how much is going out, how much flatness is going out. You ask the right questions about the hole that
discussed
comes
the
in
fill.
and so forth. You need a detailed mitigation plan. You need three things: a landscape plan, not because I'm a landscape architect, but a landscape plan to put this together. It ties in with a mitigation plan. A landscape plan is usually the hardscape, how the driveway, we see the driveway, how are they entering the house, what kind of a walkway do they use, the fence that was talked about around the pool, that should be talked about because it's going to need a fence. That shaped pool will not have a retractable cover. So without the retractable cover, you need a fence. That's the law in Massachusetts. You need a fence. So, and then to address the question over here about saltwater pools, most of the towns suggest that a water truck only comes down to draw down the water on a saltwater pool. That's the way it's usually addressed. You can't put it in the ground. A lot of towns will suggest an overflow to drain down the water on a traditional pool, and they'll allow it even though it's chlorinated because the chlorination goes away. But on a saltwater pool, they demand that you draw down the water to a certain point and take it away. So that's how they deal with it. You're not going to drop salt water in Cohasset Lake, that's for sure. So handrails, I'm almost through, so excuse me. A wetlands restoration plan. The landscape plan suggests all the hardscape that's going to go on there because it's additional hardscape. And should be dealt with in the terms of topography and where the water should go. Then there's the landscape plan, planting plan. Sometimes, in this case, the owner would want ornamental plantings out front. He doesn't have to use all mitigation, but there is a suggested area. Those slope areas should be planted with woody shrubs and not that New England grass, I'm trying to think of it, but the proponent was right, that it doesn't require watering. It's suggested that it's conservation mix is what they call it. So you put the conservation mix after you plant the sides of that driveway, for example. You plant that with woody plants. You can use low bush blueberry, high bush blueberry, it doesn't really make any difference. Viburnum, there's plenty of plants that can be suggested. And underneath that, they put a netting, okay? And then they plant the grass seed to it. You don't mow the grass, it just grows, and it's called a nurse seed mix to get the bank held, and then the plants fill in. So you should have all of these elements on this plan. There is, I don't mean to compare you with other towns. They won't allow any of this to happen. Drainage patterns before and after. We see the topography changes in this. We also have an additional thing with pollution. The towns will ask for what kind of equipment, who's going to have the equipment, and sign off on the equipment that it doesn't drop oil into the yard. These are little things about an existing problem we hope you change completely. The top of the inland bank, it's a resource area. It's being encroached because you look at the topography and you look at where the top of the coastal bank is. It's right there on the money, which means it's too close to call it not being touched. It is being touched. It's being touched quite a bit, actually. Just like the limit of work line that goes into the 25-foot buffer from the BVW. By the way, the BVW was accurate. I looked at it, looked perfect. I see all the description that Pear made as far as they use the outline. They really exceed the qualifications of most of the towns I go to. And I fill out those stupid mathematical formulas also. However, if they are in the same business, they can do a wildlife habitat study, I'm sure. And because you've got the same company in there, they do the same thing, it would be proper for you to ask for that wildlife study to see what's down there and to put your minds at ease, because I see the uneasiness that's here. Almost done. I guess I got ahead of myself. I basically said that. The watershed areas need to be identified, what's going to go on there, whether it's ornamental grass, is there any ornamental grass here, or is it all just conservation mix? The planting in the front is important to you. You should know if it's ornamental or not. They don't have to call it out. They just said this is ornamental foundation planting. I'm sorry to come in so late in the game, but basically that's my presentation. I hope you accept it. Again, I have confidence in what I'm saying in regard to that.
We will take it under advisement. I don't know if anybody up here has any questions for him at this point in time. But thank you.
There's one thing I do want to clarify. You mentioned coastal bank, and I know you do a lot of work on the ocean.
Sorry.
Coastal bank and bank are two very different things.
Inland
So
bank.
the top of the slope is not considered the bank. The bank would basically be the undercut area adjacent to the pond at the very bottom of the slope. I know it's very complicated in coastal communities. I wouldn't necessarily want to have to deal with coastal requirements as well, but the banks are quite different.
Yeah, I have to think that one out. I always thought that the same description was for the top of an inland bank. An inland bank goes up, rises up, it flattens out to a certain proportion.
No.
Coastal areas, it's 1 in 4 and 1 in 10 when it breaks out. In this case, you can see it clearly where it breaks out.
Well, you mentioned coastal bank, and I think that that's probably what you're thinking of, and they are quite different.
Well, anyhow, nevertheless, he's near the
But
top.
thank you
where it
anyway.
goes up. Yep. The stability of the house is sitting on top of a ramp like this, and here's the house. There should be a buffer, and you brought it up, so hopefully you go along with some of the recommendations. I thank you for your time,
Thank you.
Thank you.
and we'd like to be involved with the next meeting if you can, if it's to be continued.
It's an open meeting, so.
Okay.
Any other comments from the audience? Come up and use the mic, please.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julie Pritchard. I live at 7 Woodland Road. I just had a question. I've been looking at the screen, and I'm looking at the title of this request. This is a proposal for construction of an addition and an in-ground pool. How does the title of this, or the,
Addition?
it
No,
says here.
that's a
Yeah, that's
typo.
incorrect. As far as
don't worry
that
about that.
description is
Yeah.
incorrect up there.
Okay, so that
Nothing to do with
wouldn't
this.
impact how you guys
No.
can
Right,
vote
no,
on this
no.
or the
Yep.
He
requirements that
just
you must
took it
meet.
down, so there you go.
All right,
It was
okay.
like, I think that was left over from the last hearing, and you just changed the first part, but they didn't change
They
the last
didn't-
later
they just
text.
changed the
They
address.
just took
Okay.
it off, as you
Okay.
can see.
Okay. So I guess the other is just a comment that there's been a lot of, it seems like, ignoring of that whole 100-foot buffer that it seems to me is really where your responsibility lies. And I'm really hoping that you reconsider, because 25 feet is barely the width of this room. And that's, just doesn't seem like enough. There's an awful lot of trees and probably an awful lot of wildlife, and certainly a lot of environment that's going to be impacted by this. And so I'm going to hope that you consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? You indicated somebody wanted to zoom in.
I just wanted to ask if that was a possibility. I don't know if anyone is planning to, is this the time where you would ask for one?
Yes, yes. This is public comments.
He's checking.
Can I ask? Association? Shirley?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, this is John. Oh,
Go, John.
John?
He's on mute.
So do you want me to go now?
Yes. We're waiting
Okay.
for you.
All right. No, I just would echo that Wayne represents our greater community of the Cocasset Lake Association, and I thought he did an excellent job pointing out many of our concerns, which is the buffer zone. It's quite simply that, and it's very obvious that the resource area is going to be severely impacted by the scope and size, not only of the building, but of the clear cutting that's going to be happening of the 33,000 square feet that's there. And to not take that into consideration would be, it would be inconceivable. And I hope that it's taken seriously in terms of, 10 feet mitigation, moving the house back is just a beginning for what needs to happen to make this so that it does not have severe environmental impact on the lake. So I will stop there and let others speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Brad Highland, 24 Water Street. I just wanted to address that people swim in the lake. I haven't heard that brought up at all, but there's a whole beach area and lots of kids use the lake, and I don't know how the temperature will affect if the water gets warmer. If there's algae, is there possibilities that it could not be usable to swim in if that occurs? Because it's a big part of the history of the CLA.
I don't know where the algae, if there's algae there now, or I'm not sure if this is going to create algae. I have no way of knowing that. We're working to prevent any of that happening, but there's no way that we can litigate that, as far as I know.
Okay. I just wanted that everyone was aware that it's used for swimming too. I've only heard.
Oh, yes,
the discuss
we're
about.
well aware that there's, the beach is right across the way, and
Thank you.
they don't want to look at the house.
We could make a suggestion that the association, their consultant could represent them as to answering that question, which we have somebody here from the association. Now, I'm looking for the consultant, I'm talking about the consultant, sir, I'm talking about the consultant that helps treat the pond for weeds and stuff like that, who would be a lot more capable of being there every single year and knowing what's going on the entire pond, and also this section of the pond along the easterly side. So if you could contact them, if they could have any input in providing that information for that type of a question.
Good suggestion, thank you.
That's something that we don't know because they've been there. And you pay them for it.
Any other questions, comments from the audience? Anything from the board?
This is John Hage. I might just close with that we heard many times that there's nothing in the bylaw that requires it. It's not required. It's not altering any of the resource area. A wildlife study is not required. But it is something that is obvious to us that it is within your purview to require, just because the bylaws don't explicitly state that it needs to happen. And that goes for the buffer zone. And we would hope that you would take that under serious consideration and deliberation. And we thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anything else? Motion to continue?
Make that motion.
Second.
Discussion, the 13th.
Do we have permission?
Well, 13th of,
If you have discussion, I'd just like to go over some of the things that we talked about.
Sure.
If you have a few minutes.
Sure.
So as we move forward to this next meeting, we can make some progress, I hope. So from my notes, somebody suggested it, or Jim suggested a split rail fence along the 25-foot no disturb. Some questions about a saltwater pool. A recommendation to move that house back 10 feet. Changing the shading on the east side to make it some higher down in that southeast area. Modification of the erosion control fencing and the sequencing, so that we put some construction fencing around it. And that was what I wrote down. So, but it was just random comments and stuff, so I'm not sure where you want me to go. And we talked about, of course, the wildlife. So
Wildlife,
you were gonna
yeah.
put something together on that.
Yeah, sorry, just a minute.
So those are the comments that I heard from the commission.
Okay. Anything else you want him to look at?
Just one question, Bill. Who's going to be out there to say to grind up the stump or not? Are you going to leave that independently to a contractor, which I wouldn't say there probably should be a third party involved?
You can make that a condition. You know, if you feel strong about that as an issue, you can make that, you know, usually it's a normal condition that you make the engineer or surveyor certify the fencing, and that's fine. Or if you want to make it that somebody has to be out there, but, you know, somebody, if you want it to be Jane, or if you want it to be the engineer, or somebody is required to be that person, you could put that in your conditions, and that's fine. It would have more teeth if it was in your condition. And that way, maybe during the pre-construction meeting, that could be, amongst other things, you know, made sure that they understand, you know, this is an important thing to us, and, you know, who's the man? Is it you? Is it you? Is it me? I mean, whoever you need it to be.
Okay.
That's fine. I mean, that's,
Good. All right, yes.
Thank you. We also talked about quantification.
Could you also use the mic again, since this is on Zoom?
We also talked about quantification of certain elements, like the cut and fill, how much fill is going out, coming in, et cetera. A landscape plan we talked about, which is a hardscape plan, and then a planting plan or a mitigation plan that's a little bit more far-reaching than this. All those areas that are disturbed with contours on it should be planted with woody plants, with the understory being the conservation mix. I'm not trying to tell them what to do, but I'm just trying to say that you need a full-blown landscape plan of sorts, and a mitigation plan that's a little bit more far-reaching in all the disturbed areas that have contour changes. They're very self-evident.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
Hi, I'm Anne Marie Young, 32 Water Street. I just have a question about the process. So this question, I think, about the buffer zone, when does that get discussed? Is that like at the next meeting? That's a continuation? Is that something that we would hear from the board members? Thoughts about that, or
We've
is
been
that?
discussing the buffer zone from day one. It's been constant. Did you have a particular question about the buffer zone?
I guess my question is, I mean, I've heard people talking about the leeway that this board has to increase the buffer zone size. And just sitting here, I don't know if that's true or not, if that's something that is something that all of you would discuss further, or it just sort of stays as it?
With our agent, because she's the professional on the laws and bylaws.
Well, the burden of proof is on the applicant to show that the 25-foot buffer would protect all of the interests of the bylaw. The Wetlands Protection Act, I always say, is the bare minimum protection, so I'm not even considering that. And the commission does have the discretionary authority to review things like the wetlands, MACC wetlands buffer zone guides, and they can base their findings of fact. So what they do is they review the project, they ask for certain things, they cannot micromanage, they can't tell them what they have to do, they have to make their own decisions. And then based on the information, when the hearing is closed, then the commission looks at that information and they say, well, does this protect this, this, and this interest of the bylaw based on science? And if they don't believe so, then they can cite findings with scientific evidence of scientific studies that state with slopes that are X and such, buffer zone widths should be increased by X and such, and that basically 25 feet is the bare minimum protection. And as has been stated, a lot of this book will say things like, you know, in order to protect from nitrogen, you have to have a buffer zone of X width, and, you know, wildlife habitat X width. And so basically what they would do is they would review the information that's been submitted, they would make their findings, and then they would decide on whether to approve or deny the proposed project based on the facts.
Yeah.
So, you know, they can't squeeze every little ounce out of the applicant. The applicant needs to make their own decision, and then the commission can say, well, we disagree with this because the science states that this is what it should be. And then we go from there. So yes, we have been discussing that all along.
So Jane, I think we should step back a bit for people who are not used to coming here. So it's, the buffer zone is 100-foot. So
Yes,
we have a
thank you.
resource area, which is the lake, and then there's a 25-foot no disturb zone that is our resource area, that protects the resource area, and then there's that they can't go into without special permission. If the, you know, like in this case, it's the path going down to the lake for the dock. And then outside of that, there's a 100-foot buffer zone, which we have jurisdiction over in terms of reviewing what's being done to see if that's going to impact the resource area. So that's the 100-foot buffer zone that we've been talking about, and then there's a 25-foot no disturb zone.
And that's inside of that 100-foot.
Right, so it's, so you, in this case, if you just, from a simplistic viewpoint, you draw the line of where the water is on the peninsula, go up 25 feet from that, and that's the no disturb zone. And then 100 feet from that is the 100-foot buffer zone.
But we can make it more difficult, and we can say that the 100 feet starts at the bordering vegetated wetland, which is based on soils and plants. So the peninsula, the northern end of the peninsula, the water is quite a distance from where that wetland line is. So it's deceiving. There's going to be much wider width in that particular area of protected land because the wetlands have vegetation in them in that instance. Along the very edges of the peninsula, where it's so steep, not so much. But on the northern end, that is going to be a lot wider than you might anticipate.
And the plan that was presented does take that into account. It's not like, here's where the water boundary is, there's wetlands there. And so it's, I was being simplistic of where you look at the
Yeah,
water, 25
yes.
feet. There's
You put the plan up.
wetlands on the north end before you get to the slopes of the peninsula, that's, you have to go to where that ends to where the 25-foot starts. And the plan takes care of all that. So that's something, you know, Bill's very good at taking care of, you know, addressing that question. And with Pear, they're, you know, they come out and they go, and Lauren does a great job of delineating all that stuff. So we're not really that concerned. There was you know, a couple of some minor changes, but we're not really terribly concerned about that, particularly where those lines are. but it's, so that's where there's a 25-foot no disturb from the boundary, and then there's a 100-foot buffer, which we analyzed to see if there's something in that that we can, you know, that we think is gonna impact the resource, which is the water. And we've been talking about how to mitigate that, you know, the bushes on the water, the slopes, things like that,
And
to
it's
be able to.
complicated, so I like to color. It's hard to read, it's hard to understand, and there's a whole lot of
Distance to the water
requirements
from
under the
the,
laws based on science and
where
such.
the blueberry
So-
bushes are going in to the actual
Hard to
water.
understand. There's a
And
lot
then we're
to
talking
this.
about to the buffer.
What point are we talking about?
On the northern side, up in there. That's land
Right?
there.
That's land to the water.
Yeah, and
So
then
this is-
just come around to the lower spot. But you've got approximately 50, no, go to your, yeah, right in there, from the water to the,
To the wetland,
yeah.
it's about 25,
So
it's
you
about
got,
25 feet.
you've probably got 50 feet of
I don't know if I should show this or not.
distance from where you're planting the blueberry bushes to the actual water. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What's that?
Okay, so
That area.
all along that northern side there, you've got 50 feet instead of 25.
Well, this
Although
is-
you're
this is
25 from the,
tighter.
yeah,
It's tighter, that's more.
yeah. Okay,
But you're right, yeah, especially on that north knoll, there's a lot more land.
yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope, and we're fine with continuing it to the 13th.
Okay. Do I want to make a motion for continuance to the 13th?
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second? Second. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you all for coming in. Jane, you want to talk about 16 Garrett's Plain Road?
Yes, I've been dreading writing this because
For bylaws, not bylaws.
it has metamorphosed. So, let's see, where's my copy? I have a copy. Did I not keep a copy? Here it is, thank you.
Yeah.
So basically, this thing started out as a violation. And so I probably should have recommended that he file for a restoration notice of intent, which he didn't really. He filed a notice of intent to build a house on the property and encroach upon that 100 feet. And then the commission wanted it to be restored. And we went back and forth many times, and it ended up where Scott said, I just won't plan anything in that 100-foot area, and I'll just leave it the way it is. And so let's get it restored. It'll be good for both you and for your client and for us. So then he did the rest. He said, okay, I will restore it as X and such, which at the very end of this, I included the restoration plan that he brought in the night of the meeting and reviewed, and I had a copy of it somehow, I'm not sure how, I think, whatever it was. And we went through it step by step, and we discussed what would be done. And from the notes that I took, I made this restoration plan of 11/1/2021. And I sent him a copy of this, as well as a copy of our boilerplate notice of intent, which isn't, I mean, it's boilerplate, but this is just for the bylaw. So it's been an interesting task. So what I did is I put the final approved plans and documents on page 2. The existing conditions plan was not signed or stamped. We had no signed, stamped, or stamped plan in the lot, so we don't have one that's been signed. The notice of intent filing, I put that in with the revised notice of intent, page 3. The notice of intent cover letter I have in there, and then the letter with the revised notice of intent, page 3. I did include the email from the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program person regarding my accepted observation, which was in the middle of June. It was like June 2/20. Then there was a formal certification letter in January 21. I have the 16 Garrett's Lane Road Restoration Plan dated 11/1/2021, and I included it at the very end of the order, as I just said. And then I put in a historical condensed version, a history that's been condensed, that includes parcel 216, which I'm thinking this might have been. I don't know why that's important, but that's what I had on there. So for findings, I put a quick project history, which basically says, you know, I told them about the vernal pool, and then during the COVID pandemic, when state workers were at home, Heritage approved the certification, then we went on from there. I just wanted to set the record straight without getting into too much detail. And then back in the middle of June, the planting area protocol to restore the 100-foot vernal pool no activity zone was prepared by Ecotech, but then the applicant decided not to pursue the proposed plan. So it's been it's been changing. Like, all you have to do is blink and he'll bring in a different plan. So in any case, I put in a finding that you found that the proposed hillside restoration and invasive plant removal / management shall help to mitigate for the unpermitted site alterations by improving the hillside's natural buffer zone and wildlife habitat. It shall renaturalize this upland resource area by 1, hand removing invasive plants, and 2, allowing the remaining native plants to grow, and 3, monitoring the area for 3 years. Resource area impacts, I don't think we have any definite information about that, but it is what it is. So then the rest of it is relatively boilerplate until you get to special conditions, and then it's relatively boilerplate restoration. I looked at the one that was, I referred to the one that was for, what was it? There were a couple of them, actually. One of them was for Moore Street. And basically, it's all set out in these, the best I could. I didn't really know how to handle it because it's just basically a restoration. And any building in the, beyond the 100 feet is not within your jurisdiction unless and until it alters that 100 feet.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's, you know, he modified it a number of times and we pulled out of that space, but we still need that
Yes.
space, restored.
And that said, I went over to look at it. I've been dreading this. I've been dreading it. I went over to look at the work after it was put in. I asked Scott to tell me when it was going to be done, and he told me the night before that it was going to be done by his guys first thing in the morning, and they were in the process of working on it when I called. I said, is it going to make a difference if I come down? He said, well, no, not really, because most of them are planted already. But, so I was afraid to see it. But I went out there last week or the week before, and I was pleasantly surprised, honestly. It didn't look bad. I mean, I'm sure his client will be thrilled that it doesn't look as bad. They did remove a lot of invasives, and gosh darn it, there are a lot of little plants growing. You know, the little bushes, there are little low bush blueberries, and supposedly his landscaper, I was looking at the ones that were planted, and there were deer prints in the dirt around the edges. So I looked to see if the deer had been eating it, and I saw snipping from cutters, but not from deer. And I said, gee, I don't know why they're not getting it. He says, well, my landscaper said he could spray it with something to keep them away. So apparently he must have. I was shocked. So if you get a chance to peek out there, it looks okay. It really does.
He's done then with the restoration, the way
He's done the restoration, basically, and I was, like I said, very pleasantly surprised after all this hullabaloo.
Did he put any trees in or all?
He put trees in, they're small trees. He put Apparently, he got pine trees because that was one of the things that they had.
No.
Even though we said no, but there are a lot of pine trees, honestly, in the area, so whatever. He put,
The purpose was
red-
to replace the hardwoods, though, not
I
the
know,
pines.
I know, but you know, in truth, the pines will grow faster. And then the areas, excuse me, that he's marking off with bounds are where those amphibians hopefully will go from here on in. I think they'll probably need to because the rest will be too hot right now. So I think that it's going to work out in the end. I'm still not happy about it, but I think you managed to pull it off. It's taken a lot of patience. The problem is, how do we avoid it in the future? I don't know.
Yeah.
But this came right down to the wire. I'm so sorry I didn't get it to you earlier, but it's just been painful for me to think about, honestly.
Somebody want to make a motion to sign it?
I'll make that motion to sign the order of conditions for, is it 16 Garrett's Plain Road?
Bylaw, order condition.
Bylaw order of conditions, thank you.
Okay, second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Do you want to, I mean, we all have signature pages. You want to, have you got one that you want to send around?
Yeah, I've got one. These are all two-sided. This is the official version right here.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that this is recorded against the deed. But Diana says that Bay Colony does that, just whenever they receive it, it's done. So that would be good. I just want to make sure that it's a continuing condition on the deed.
I don't think Bay Colony's still working for them,
I
though.
was gonna say, are they doing that, or is it him?
I don't know at this point.
think
They
it's
work
him.
together a period.
Because I know he was having Bill do, he was representing himself on this stuff, but Bill was doing
No.
the plans, the drawings.
Right, right, but he wasn't signing them. And I did not put anything in there about the bounds, which I should have done. So I will add information about bounds. You sure?
I just looked at it.
Yeah.
I wrote there would be 4 bounds,
Oh, as far as where they're gonna go.
but the bounds conditions and getting a partial certificate after the bounds are installed. I should probably do that.
Yeah, we agreed to where the different bounds were, those ponds.
Right, but I
Five
didn't,
of
I
them.
didn't expand upon that, so
Yeah.
We do 5 of
I
them.
saw the, I guess I didn't look at that.
I specified it, but, you know, basing the partial certificate of compliance on the placement of the bounds, and I don't even remember where it falls in the,
Yeah, no, I quickly read through and I saw it, I just didn't pay attention to that part of it.
so I can add conditions about the bounds, and I'll incorporate that. I'm also going to attach a couple of documents that I cite in here.
Yes.
Then you have to shred.
I'd like to find a way so this does not happen again. I'm just trying to figure it out. And also, we're not going to do this now, I'm sure, but I want to pass these out. One's the hunting rules, conservation land. I think Diana passed around this 500-foot structure buffers that was put together by the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife person that I know a few years back, but it's based on
Yeah.
older information, but it's a good starting point.
Yeah.
It does show how
Yeah, I got
pinched
it.
everything is.
Okay.
So I can see why some should be removed.
Is that in the today's packet?
I don't know, should be in the, no, it's not in your packet, but it should be in your pile someplace.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
right in the
saw
file.
we have, yeah.
Looks like this.
Yep. Yep.
So you might want to look at it and think about it. I did find out that somebody who lives next to the Saley property or in that general area, Daniel Carpenter, I guess he was complaining to me about hunters in that area. So I'm thinking that would probably be a good one to knock off the list. because it really is surrounded by houses at this point.
Yep.
And there are plenty of other places, and maybe add Wolf Meadow, because I know people hunt there anyway.
There's so many trails up there.
And Wolf Meadow is adjacent to the State Forest and the Harold Clark. So maybe if there are just two large areas, like the Canoe River Aquifer area and the State Forest area,
People are warned.
Okay.
but I guess there have been a lot of
What kind
complaints.
of complaints are they? Like, is it just noise complaints, or like they're worried?
I guess it freaks his wife out whenever they, I guess they're parking behind the church and going in there and shooting really close. And
As
you have
someone
to
who
be-
wakes up pretty frequently to the sound of.
I think you have.
Isn't that wonderful to wake up to?
Like, it's just part of it, and, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's part
yeah.
of why I live there, right, is because the woods are there, so.
Trails made by.
Yes, exactly, but
I
if
take
they're,
the
if they're
bugs
getting too
and-
pinched, if the area's too small,
Yep.
I can see that rationale, and if you allow it in the Saley property, then by default, they may think that they can go over onto the Sentry property, which is privately owned,
Doesn't mean they're not-
so
Unauthorized.
could see the validity in that. Do you have?
Find a lot of trails going to the back of the house.
Everything
You
I
don't have this.
I just grabbed that.
You do have that?
Right there. And it's defined. It's in the woods.
It's
I thought it would get warmer.
Trail.
No, there's a lot of
moment.
bikers.
And then it just kind of faded away.
Anything else?
Vegetation.
Cold in here in the
Do
summer.
your homework. Diana's ordering you all a buffer zone guidebook. But the gist of that is, the MACC was advocating this under the Wetlands Protection Act, which is really the minimum protections there are. But under your discretionary authority, if circumstances warrant, you can increase the required buffer based on science. And then what you do is in your findings, you put, the commission finds that, for example, 25 feet is not adequate to protect the interests of the act and the bylaw, not the resource areas, interests, because of this study. And then you cite the study. So,
Find specific studies to show that, to David's point, that's the one that piqued my interest, like if the peninsula heats up X amount, it's going to affect
absolutely.
such and such by such and such.
And we also have got climate change, it's coming at us.
That's a whole nother one, but.
That's a whole nother
Right,
one.
they can't be responsible for climate change, but I'm just
No.
thinking of like what you were saying, like if you can quantify, like you pour that much extra sunlight on an area and then it has this effect on.
Well, you get a heat island, and basically, this talks about all of that, and this was the MACC's way of helping the commission to make defensible decisions.
When I was working with our loggers, when we opened up an area of about 80-foot tall trees, the temperature was like around 70 underneath them. And then once we opened it up, by mid-afternoon, it had risen over 45 degrees.
Well, and
I believe it.
The other one that comes into it, I don't know how we put this in there, like in forestation, they're talking about edge effect, right? So if you clear an area where it's totally forested out, the trees right on the edge of that, next to that open area, they slowly die too, because now they don't have their brothers shading them, and so it then pushes, I don't know how you quantify that into something
They get
scientific.
weakened.
They
to
actually
say
don't
how to-
slowly die. They actually slow down in their growth.
But some of them will just actually die because, like they were saying, either too hot and then getting stressed out and getting blown down and all the stuff that goes along with it.
Yeah.
Well, look for the scientific studies,
Yes.
and that's what you cite.
Let's-
And so, basically, under the Wetlands Protection Act, you can try, but it's, personally, I don't know. The DEP says they want to stand behind your decisions, but I haven't seen it. You always said that, and I says, oh, no, but they say if you do this, this, and this. No, I haven't seen it in this town. But the bylaw is your real, it has the teeth. And the bylaw, what they do is they review the record, period. From start to finish, all the administrative stuff, the open meeting stuff, everything. Make sure you followed all the rules. And then they decide whether the commission's decision was arbitrary and capricious. That's really, and correct me if I'm not saying it right,
No, you're
Jim?
right.
That's the only standard of review that is, I don't know, defensible from the appellant's
Applicant.
point of view.
Getting
of the
appealed,
applicants,
yeah, right.
Do they review?
Based on substantial evidence, yeah.
Do they also review recorded meetings?
Don't know.
That's what.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if the judge
I-
sits through
I wonder if that's something,
a video recording. You would have to bring that up at the hearing.
it's a different world. I think what they do is if you, it's a review of the record, the written record.
Are these archived anywhere?
You can't like, expand the record to include
They don't
additional
archive.
things.
I don't know, I wonder.
Archived in Zoom meetings, do they?
Petition the court
I
to
have no
allow for
idea.
it. Court may
They
deny it.
have to archive those.
I would imagine
What-
they have to.
What
Usually they do, I mean, yeah.
moving parties
Police
like to do is say that the DEP
There.
agreed with the
Diana?
argument and issued a superseding order
Diana, do you
allowing the
know if they
project.
archived the recordings
So the court should
of the meetings?
take that
Yes, they do.
decision
Foxborough Cable has it.
under their review.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. that makes sense.
You mean
problem
under the
is-
bylaw? Well, they stay it.
No, I-
They stay the DEP's
This is what,
decision.
this is what a moving party will do, is try to convince the judge that the standards are the same by saying, hey, look, DEP said it was okay, and we want to include that decision in the record to
Yes,
expand
but
the record.
bylaws are more strict.
I get that, but
It
you
has to
want to
be
say,
proven.
DEP said it was okay, and the bylaw with respect to this particular thing is the same as the DEP's review, which is under the Wetlands Protection Act. So if DEP says it's okay, you gotta allow it too.
Oh, that's
under
the whole
bylaw.
thing. Yeah, that's the whole review under the bylaw.
That's why you expand the record, but otherwise, it's under the administrative record of what the commission reviewed when it made the decision. Everything that comes in before they close the hearing.
Supposedly, the only defensible thing is that they proved the commission was being arbitrary and capricious. But if you review everything according to, the way you review everything else, which is what you do, when you follow the regulations, which I wanted to be put together so that you would do things
Yeah.
consistently,
Yeah, well,
you should be
it is
good.
what it is. Yeah.
But I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there either. That takes a lot of time and effort and cash on the town's part.
It's gonna
For
get
town
appealed,
council.
right back.
What'd you say?
Caucasian?
Water Street?
Either way,
Either way,
it's gonna get appealed.
well, hopefully, if there can be a meeting of the minds. I agree with you. I
We
do.
got more than 10
Our
people
minds
here.
can meet, but I don't think,
Unless we, yeah,
one side's gonna be
Move to
unhappy.
adjourn before we say
Yes.
too much more.
Make a motion to close the hearing? Motion to close the meeting?
Jeff
Okay,
second.
here's a second.
Jeff second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
yeah.
Good night, all.
That was.